Oh,
people
we're going live.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Just we are about to be live, hypothetically.
Yeah, but we're not live. We're now live, so now I can't say what I was going to say.
Oh dear.
What now that I'm aware that we're live, I'm not going to say what I was going to say because I keep that stuff private.
Hello there, folks. Welcome to my channel. I am Dr. Dino. This is Beamsy here. If you want to join us here in the open mic after show, feel free to join us. Link is pinned in the chat. I run a pretty open room. Just don't swear too much, please, and don't be too much of a let's say a jerk to other people. I'll also have a little bit of a game running in the background because I like to do that. So Beamsy, what do you think of the debate?
Somebody obviously doesn't understand how the scientific method works.
Yeah, it was just a little bit painful for me.
Oh, geologists aren't scientists. We don't know how mountains are made.
We don't know anything, apparently. Again, if anyone wants to come on and share their thoughts, feel free. We'll probably be here for a little bit. In the meantime, I got a little evolution simulator game because, it's fun. Pretty basic, but I enjoy it. Oh, we have a tinfoil freak. Hello there.
Hello.
Oh. What did you think of the debate, quote unquote, as necessary?
Oh shit! Just a second.
No problem.
I was on the stream in the other tab, but I was wondering how that was really a debate. Like, honestly, because like that.
Yeah.
What's his name? Ross, right?
Yeah, I think that was his name.
Like, he just didn't seem to understand anything about what the debate was about. Like, he didn't understand anything about evolution. He didn't even it didn't even seem that he understood anything about creationism. Like,
yeah,
that
he couldn't keep up with the conversation at all either. Like, oh
yeah, like
the camera went someplace. Yeah, like he just Mark said a few things a few times, and I think he just didn't comprehend it at all.
Yeah, he was just a bit wacky, like that, and like I just don't like, where did they set up the debate at? Because like,
he tried to say, he tried to approach it like, oh no, this is a conversation. This is the way conversations work. No, you've come into a debate format. That's not how this works.
Yeah, I gave up about halfway through because it was like, this is going to go nowhere because the amount of projection that is going on here is enough to light up the fucking moon, like the dark side of the moon.
And remember, you can't say that he doesn't understand. You're calling him stupid.
Yeah, like, that's something I don't like. Whenever you try to explain something, people automatically assume that you're stupid. Like,
what was all the fake macho crap too? Like,
oh god,
that was confusing and infuriating.
Yeah. Something that really got me was when he was taking and saying, well, if you can't explain it simply to a general audience, you don't understand the topic, which is just blatantly false. Like, try explaining quantum physics in a simple way. Try explaining anything above a college level in a simple way, and you find that it's basically impossible because they've already simplified it down as much as possible for the undergrads play, like for the for the people in high school and middle school and elementary school. Like, that's the simplest shit you can get.
Yes, let's talk about the interface between the lithosphere and the upper mantle, and talk about how the friction there works. Now let's think of this in a simple way of putting it. I can't without making it more complex.
Yeah, like,
I'm sorry, Beamsy. Why are you casting black magic spells? Also, howdy, Grayson.
Yo, that debate was wild and crazy.
Well, that's one way to say it.
Well, one side was debating, the other one was just flailing angrily.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the other guy just seemed to, for some reason, think that in a creationism versus evolution debate, that creationism represents something coming from something, and then therefore evolution must represent something coming from nothing. That seemed to be the heart of his entire argument, which makes no sense. And and Mark tried to point that out multiple times, that it's a straw man, but it never quite got through to him.
Yeah. It did not at all, for whatever reason you want to put on it.
Like, I don't like.
Sorry, I will just say that say whatever you want about Ross. At least he's one of the most unique positions of any debaters that I've ever seen on modern day debate, to be honest.
What did the creating in creationism? I don't know. Aliens? Maybe. I don't know.
At least he's not an Iron Horse. He's probably worse, because at least he wears pants.
Iron Horse. I've never actually had the displeasure of watching something from Iron Horse, and
You don't want to.
Yeah, from what I've heard, it is brain-fryingly stupid.
He's the Australian that streams from a hot tub, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen him do Flat Earth and talk about, like, gravity is wind or something.
Yeah, he's just
evil Mark, if you will.
Yeah, he's just a CIA plant, because there are no flat earthers in Australia.
Yeah, they just fall off.
Yeah, right? Australia obviously doesn't exist.
Yeah, but that was such a wild debate. I mean, the fact that Mark went in there with, like, an actual, really well put together presentation, opening arguments, talking about evidence, and the guy just was just totally out there had no idea, like, what the debate was supposed to be on, despite saying that he had seen every single one of Mark's debates.
I wonder if maybe it would have helped the debate if, like, Mark had sent him, like, the slideshow he was using, or took and explained to him what his position was. Like, I'm not saying that Mark didn't do that. I'm just wondering that if it didn't happen like that, maybe Ross could have had a more well thought out rebuttal or opening statement, because oh boy, that opening statement was something.
Not sure.
Right.
But, welcome, Ryan, the moderator himself. Welcome to the after show.
Hey, Ryan.
Cheers. How's it going, fellas?
Oh, we're all right.
You deserve a Medal of Honor for trying to corral Ross in that debate. I like golden star for your effort there.
Give me your address and I'll send you a free tinfoil gun.
Oh man, I was gonna say I needed something to corral that. That's for sure. Yeah, there wasn't. We had lots of mods in the chat, but yeah, it was very difficult. Like, I was explaining to Mark after the chat, like, he had such a great opening with his screen share, and he presented his arguments from the evolutionary side, and then we had we had a lot of talk about what Mark thinks, and then we had Ross open with a lot of talk about what Mark thinks. It was very strange, like I was sitting here like, okay, it was reminding me very much of the Howard debate with T-Jump, which I did the dinosaur debate. That was my first or second debate on modern day debate, and I had no idea what to do, because T-Jump was like, I'll leave if you mute me, but we we couldn't even get Howard to explain anything really. So I was worried it was going to get to that point where, we weren't going to get to anything actually substantive on the creationist side. So I'm glad that Mark was able to just kind of, lean into like an evolution on trial type conversation, because the evolution versus creationism, like, he thanked me afterwards. I apologized to him. I didn't set it up, but James set it up, but I'm not taking credit for that. Don't put that on me. But well, what do you guys think? Honestly, like, sometimes I think when we have these conversations, it's cool when we do have good representatives, but I think it's also sometimes great when we don't have great representatives, because in your day-to-day life, you don't always have the best representative of a view. And to try to explain that to somebody can sometimes be a bit of a skill unto itself. So, did you guys still find value in that discussion as far as that goes?
No,
I mean,
I feel it was. I think it was okay for the most part, but this is just a personal thing. I would have probably stepped in when Ross was starting to rant for like over a minute in some places.
Well, I was gonna say, if you're talking about like the
took off.
cross-examination, there was a point where I was kind of letting them have a moment to rant during like cross-examination, but once we got to that last like 20 to 30 minutes, it was like, full on open discussion. It's difficult because at the end of the day, I have to remain unbiased. So like when Mark started speaking during his, cross-examination, I had to mute Mark. It's not that I want to, it's just that, I have to be consistent.
No,
Speak of the
it was
devil.
perfectly fine.
Speak of the
I
devil.
think it was perfectly fine. Hey, how you doing?
Welcome, Mark.
Yeah, and I have my own views, Mark, on whether I'd like you to be a little bit more expounded upon. So
no, I think Ryan did fine, and I think he should let him talk. Like, he let me do my spiel kind of thing, and yeah, I get that it was a bit of an unhinged rant, but if he wants to use his time to do an unhinged rant, number one, if I get to talk, he gets to talk, regardless of what you think of his arguments. Number two is, well, to be honest with you, it's good for me if he just does an unhinged rant after I've asked a question or something, so
I'm
don't
not saying he shouldn't get a chance to talk. It's just like there was some points in like the answering super chats section where he just kept going. Like after he'd made his point already.
So
yeah, that might also be me. I mean, I have to admit, like, I got back from a jam. I've been drinking beer. I drank beer at the jam, and after listening to at least 2 hours of a lot of him monologuing, because even when he was doing cross-examination for you, Mark, and I was supposed to go back to him to ask another question, he started monologuing again. Like, you got to ask at least 10 more questions than he did because you were rapidly throwing those questions out, but he wanted to monologue and use that cross-examination time. So yeah.
So to be fair, I didn't watch the Q&A. I watched like the main debate. But Ryan, I gotta say, I really enjoyed it. Mark, like, this was a very, very entertaining. Ryan, you asked if you got value out of the debate. Well, I'm not sure if I got much substantive value. The entertainment value was immense. I really, really enjoyed listening to this because, like, honestly, like, I'm here for the wacky and the weird takes. And it's funny, Ryan, that you brought up Howard, because I said earlier that Ross is one of the most unique people that you've ever had on modern day debates. And Howard was the other person I was thinking of for uniqueness, which I think can be really, really entertaining. And so I still really enjoyed the debate. Ryan, I thought you did a great job moderating. And Mark, I just, the amount of patience that you had for that, like, he was literally just shouting over every single sentence. You said 2 words and he started shouting. I don't think he finished one single thought that entire like 2 or 3 hours.
Well, it was funny because John Sydney Raptor, I think it was, sent in a question saying, will you ever get to finish a sentence before he interrupts? And I started to answer it and he interrupted me. It's like the one time where you could have not interrupted and proven me wrong You
Well,
still
that's-
had to interact. Like that was funny. That was just
I-
funny.
That's why I was saying, like, I kind of zoned out after the 2-hour zone where it was just kind of like, okay, I've been going for so long. And I mean, I might not be super coherent right now because I am super tired, but yeah, it was definitely one of those situations where, yeah, the mute button was very on. Like, I had that Zoom chat open way more than I ever do, and I was just sitting there, and the thing that's funny is that the live feed can see me. I know you can see me hovering over his screen, just waiting to mute him. So it was,
Well, I mean,
So-
the cognitive effort needed to moderate that debate was much like the physical effort of trying to sit on one of those animatronic rodeo bulls that's constantly bucking and trying to always just stay on top of it.
Yeah.
That's the cognitive effort that you had to expend for like
Oh,
3
yeah.
hours.
while
So-
trying to pleasure another human. Let's just add that.
Heyo.
Yeah,
Oh.
another thing is, has he actually done debates before? I tried looking him up, but I couldn't find anything from him.
I don't know either. Like I said,
Like-
James set it up, so I just
Yeah,
I
Mark,
hung
how did
out.
that come about?
Mark, do you know?
I don't know. Ryan contacted me. I blame Ryan. Yeah.
James contacted me, guys. I can't tell you. This guy just kind of came out of
shifting the
woodwork.
blame. Yeah.
Don't blame me, right? I just kind of hung out for the
Oh.
whole fiasco that it was.
Mark, I was saying this a little bit earlier, but I think fundamentally you were right that he just didn't understand like what the topic of the debate would be about, because it seemed like he agreed with you every time you said that abiogenesis or the Big Bang was not part of evolution, but he kept saying, but it's evolution versus creation, and to him,
Yeah.
creation seemed to be the statement that something has to come from something. And that's what he thought was being debated, was like whether or not something can come from nothing. That seemed to be the only argument he was interested in actually having.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know where that came from, but that's not the definition of creationism. Like, especially when you're talking about creationism versus evolution, because you're obviously talking about, you know, where the diversity of life comes from. So I don't, you know,
yeah.
I don't know.
I've even
He-
defaulted,
he-
Mark, to the, because, I don't get a chance to talk about this too much. I've even defaulted to the most basic observable point, which is, are you a perfect clone of your parents? Because that one fact is a fact that is encompassed in the theory of evolution. It's part of that body, right? So,
Right.
even just getting that little tiny bit to say, okay, are you a perfect copy of your parents? Do you have all of their genetic, features and, problems, if you will, right? And usually most people are going to admit no. And it's like, okay, well, then that fact is part of the theory of evolution, because there is a chance for a mutation, and you're part of that, right? Even in a small sense, right? I that's where I usually try to gravitate towards in my little pool, just because if you can get somebody on, I shouldn't say get them, but if you can kind of get agreement, I should say, on a small observable point, then maybe you can move into a larger scale. Because I don't think a lot of these people who believe in like a 5,000, 6,000 year old Earth can think on a large scale. So you kind of have, in my opinion, it's kind of better to bring it closer to home and then just kind of expand from there, right?
They just say that's microevolution, not macroevolution. Man.
Yeah.
Oh,
But if it's
There is-
encompassed in the theory is true. That's, it doesn't dismantle the whole thing. It's like, there's certain parts of it
Yeah.
that could get
Oh,
tweezered here and there, but it's not going to tear apart the whole thing. Right.
Well, I think
Also,
it serves
sorry,
you well
just
to sort
real
of-
quick. Welcome to Iron Horse.
Iron
Welcome
Horse.
to the after show.
Good
Yo.
day, Iron.
Welcome.
Hey, g'day. How's it going?
It's really funny because I think, Doc, you said that Iron Horse is like the like Mark Reid's the anti-Mark Reid or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't get
Here,
it.
let's call.
Oh my
him
goodness,
the
yeah.
big Mark.
Mark doesn't have any hair here, and he has it all down this way. That's the secret. He's the opposite, he's all beard. What's going on,
Well-
Iron Horse? I finally got your message on Facebook. It's been a while.
Oh, no worries. How you doing, Ryan? I'm well.
Oh, that's good. That's good. You hate my music, but that's all right. I
I don't
have to
hate
like
it.
it.
Yeah, it's all right. It's very good, but it's not my style.
I was gonna say, as long as you don't mind my voice, that's fine. I was gonna say that's the personal part, but yeah, I
you're a
really
good singer.
wish we didn't have that drum machine. I have to admit, I would have preferred to have the real drummer, but he ended up being a real special person. Let's say, a real freedom convoy person, anti, Canada being actually Canada. So we kind of went our separate ways. So how's it going, Iron Horse? I think I'm getting moderator vibes just by you being in here, because I know that you've got different opinions than a lot of the people that are hanging out. So how did you find the debate, buddy? I'm glad that you're here, because I wanted to actually hang out with you and show you that I'm a real person, and that you don't have to hate me. It's
Also,
fine.
sorry, just super quick. Ryan finishes a 2-hour debate as a moderator. Immediately comes in the after show and decides to moderate more.
Let's do it.
that's
Mark
cool.
Reid versus Iron Horse. Flat Earth. Let's go. All right.
I
Damn
recommended a
straight.
debate. Actually, I would have loved to debate.
All right,
that
I'll
one,
just be here playing my evolution game. You guys have fun. I
Yeah,
got purple trees.
I think evolution is bunkum. I'm not saying
Why?
that the specific creation story is necessarily the correct one.
Oh, we're
But I
doing
just-
this. Let's do
I
it
just
then. All
don't
right,
think-
Iron Horse, let's go. All right, you're on. All right, you know what? I was not appreciative of what Ross had to say. So you know what? Let's start a timer for you, man. Do it up. We're on somebody else's stream. I think he's gonna love this.
Yeah, I think he
5
was a little bit over the top, wasn't he?
He was a little bit. So you know what? Let's put a 5-minute timer on. Give us your creationism opening. Let's go.
Yeah, well, I just think, obviously, something doesn't come from nothing, and evolution on the micro scale, or the survival of the fittest and all that, that's definitely doable. But for the origins of life, which I think was what Ross was trying to get at, is that you do need something to trigger it. Something has to get it started. It's not just going to do it for no reason, out of pure random chance, given enough time to do so, because the law of inevitability and probability says if it can happen, it will happen. It's not really how it works. Basically, I think entropy, or the loss of life, would be the natural flow of things, and that nothing would exist without a hand into it to make it happen. And if I was to give a creation story myself, I would, I won't go all the way back to the origins of the creator being necessarily, but I would think that a consciousness could evolve spontaneously in nothingness, and that consciousness could become self-aware, and then it would then start creating, and everything would be spiritual based. So it's all just thought vibration, which is, the origins for Earth is basically from the word, so that it's a spoken word. And so when the word was spoken, that created physicalness, which was vibratory frequency, and eventually some of that frequency slowed down enough to create a physical realm, which is the base of the world, which is to do with the flat Earth. It is the base of existence. So you can't have you can't build a building and have anything without a foundation. But for life itself then to have existed on this basic realm that we're on, I believe it would be created by spirit through the manifestation of thought and intelligence, and hence why they say humans may have been made from clay. That could just be a misinterpretation of the words to say that we're made from the physical stuff of matter. The Mother Earth, dirt, earth, clay. You could see where the translation got lost in translation. So I would say that spirit manifest into physicalness is what created life, and that's why it happened spontaneously. Physical matter, physical beings, living beings, self-reproducing beings had to have come from intelligence in the first place. Nothing comes from nothing, as I say. Like, you can't just have a computer that evolved from a calculator, or where did the calculator evolve from? All this stuff is designed intelligently. Everything has to be designed intelligently, and we can't create life from nothing. It has to have been very intelligently created to begin with, and then it can self-reproduce. And we can't do anything even remotely like that. With all the technology we've got today, we can't even create a single living cell from nothing. And that's my time. Cheers.
That was,
What a
I
load
think,
of
a better. Well, I think that was a better opening than what we got tonight, though. Let's be
That-
honest. As far as
that
the
was
creationist
much better.
point, you know, we
But
got
yeah,
a whole
I agree
lot
with
of like
that. I
Mark
will agree
thinks
with that.
this, and Mark thinks that. Well, Mark, you heard a whole lot there, and I'm still in moderation mode. Let's give you 5 minutes. What do you think?
Wait,
Um,
are we
so-
gonna do a whole like debate here, or
Well, let's just
Well,
have
I've
a
already
little
debated
back
once
and
today. I
forth.
think someone else should take it, to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
Mark's
We've already done one debate
Mark's
today.
already debated. Yeah, that's right. Who else wants to debate Iron Horse? He just presented all that good gravy. Who wants to tackle?
yeah? I mean, I will, but I mean, again, I'm not gonna do like a 5-minute opening. I'm just gonna respond to what he said, because he said a whole lot of things there, tons and tons and
I'm
tons
out of
things.
moderation mode now. I'm back to drinking, smoking pot. Go ahead,
Noted.
buddy.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
lucky.
Tough
Lucky.
pass.
Okay, so first of all, literally none of those theories, evolution, the Big Bang, none of that posits that the universe came from nothing or that something ever came from nothing at any point there. So that, like Mark said in the debate, that is a straw man. Nobody is trying to argue that something comes from nothing, and it's not inherent in any of the theories that you're talking about. You came up with abiogenesis, saying that something needs to start it so that it goes, but the laws of chemistry are enough to explain abiogenesis. We don't need anything extra on top of the laws of chemistry. So, and again, those comes from the laws of physics, and I mean they're emergent out of the laws of physics. So, nothing that you stated is necessarily the case. You say that somehow you think that consciousness can spontaneously come out of the vacuum. But so it sounds like you're alleging that something comes from nothing there, but you're saying it's not something because it's spiritual. And again, it's just this word spiritual doesn't actually mean anything. I mean, you're just kind of, I don't know. I don't know what that means in any kind of actual sense. You say that this thing has a frequency, and the frequency of this spiritual consciousness cooled down or whatever, lowered till it became material. Again, there's nothing that just doesn't make sense. It's like a woo-woo statement. There's no mathematical rigor to what you're saying, unlike with nucleosynthesis in the Big Bang, or E equals mc squared. These are actual, like, empirically demonstrated mathematical formulations of physics. So just because you're trying to mirror that language by talking about spiritualism and frequency and some kind of mind consciousness spontaneously develops and then creates the universe, I mean, none of that is supported by any empirical or rational basis. And
So can you show me where any sort of life has formed from, say, something
him do his
nuclear
opening.
or something
Well,
chemical?
no,
I think
I
Well,
don't
he
need
decided
to
we
do
weren't
an
going to
opening.
debate.
I'll
We're not
respond to
doing
that.
5 minutes.
I
I-
will respond to that. I don't need to do any sort of monologue here. I prefer the back and forth kind of,
Yeah,
free
same.
Okay, my
flowing
apologies.
conversation.
Well, I'm curious as well. Like, isn't this a problem with
I will
the
answer that.
infinite regress there, Iron Horse, in the sense of, if you're going to say something had come from this, what would have created that God in that sense, right? Because as far as I see it, it's like it doesn't have to be conscious, because I see sperm meets egg creates consciousness. That thing wasn't conscious, now it is conscious. So that idea is not super out of the ordinary as far as what we see in
Yeah,
evolution.
that's then the problem is you're only seeing things from the purely physical point of view, whereas, as I suggested, spirit then is extra dimensional. It's outside of this physical dimension. It's
Let's
of a
take a
higher
moment.
vibratory frequency. So
Let's
that's
take a
where
moment. I never get a
the
chance to
origin-
cut anybody off. Sorry, Iron Horse. Can you just give me 1 second and define for me what spirit and spiritual is?
Well, that's exactly what I'm doing, mate. I'm saying is
Just
in
those
that-
terms themselves. That's what I've always been curious about.
I'm
that.
saying outside of the physical realm. So it's there's a mental realm, of course, the realm of thought. Well, spiritual is higher again, where it's outside of physical and mental. It's sort of something we can't we can't sort of really mentally grasp as such. It's beyond our experiential dimension, but we can sort of comprehend that it exists, and therefore it has influenced what comes down at the lower vibrations which we exist at.
May I jump in here real quick?
Sure.
How do you know it exists if we can't comprehend that it exists? Like what it is?
It's a bit like saying, you know, mentally that you have a brain inside your head, but you've never seen your brain, you've never felt your brain, but you know you have a brain because you just know through experience and autopsies and so forth.
Actually, there was a dude that saw his own brain.
Well, I'm sure it's possible.
You know what? I want to say, Iron Horse, you're so right, and I believe in Hinduism now, thanks to you.
No worries. Yeah, go for it. Believe in whatever
I'm
you
kidding.
like.
I'm kidding. I was going to say, I'm making a bit of an argument from the fact of like, this doesn't really point to anything specific.
No, that's right. And that's what spirituality is all about, is you can be aware of it. If you're a spiritual person, then you just know intuitively that you can't have a thought without thinking it. You can't have a brain without the physical matter. So obviously, everything climbs up and up the scale to the things that are unknown. And so as I'm concerned, the fact that intelligent life does exist in the physical form means it had to have been thought of in the first place. Like, we don't design anything, the car, the computer. I think
I have to be fair. I think I already debunked that with the fact that a sperm meeting an egg, neither is conscious. It's just a chemical reaction, and then consciousness eventually develops out of that. So because we have an example of things that are not conscious creating something conscious, that shouldn't be out of the question of that can happen. Like that.
Yeah, but anything could be described as a chemical reaction. Though. Anything could be described as a chemical reaction, but that's just an observation.
I think everything.
You don't know what's actually happening.
To be fair, I think everything is, including your brain having a chemical reaction to the question I just asked.
So what drives the sperm then to want to find the egg?
It doesn't.
Something obviously is. There has to be some sort of urge. If it's just chemical reactions, then you could do it in a test tube and watch a baby grow in a test tube. But
have you ever seen magnets?
We do create babies in a test tube. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we can do that. The sperm
they can fertilize an egg in a test tube, but it still
that's all they do.
Iron Horse. What you were just saying, that if it's just a chemical reaction, then we should be able to do it in a test tube, doesn't apply to like most of the chemical reactions in the universe. Like a star, nuclear fusion is just a chemical reaction. We can't do that yet in a test tube.
How do you know it's nuclear fusion though? Wait.
We can do nuclear fusion in a reactor. We have plenty of them. Like we have at least.
Also got a star in a jar from.
Hold on, let him finish his thought there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was saying that I can come up with multiple examples. If you want a different reaction, I'll just say a black hole. It's beyond the point of like, the point is that it does not logically follow that if something is just a chemical reaction, one, we should be able to do it in a test tube, or two, that it implies a lack of intentionality, whatever. Like what you're saying is that if these things are just chemical reactions, then you for some reason think that logically means that life cannot be a series of chemical reactions, or cannot come from chemical reactions. I'm saying that does not logically follow.
No, but I don't see how a chemical reaction in the first place could create something positive.
But do you concede?
Which is usually destructive. You've got a destructive force, and you're trying to say that's going to create life. That's just impossible. It just never can happen, never will happen. Well, it's destructive, not constructive.
Can you explain why you think chemical reactions are inherently destructive? And
as you said,
not only that, I got a question. When I had a chemical reaction that I was attracted to my wife, and we decided to get together and create children, is that not in your ballpark? You know what I mean? Like, even from a philosophical sense of talking about chemical reactions, can we not say chemical reactions do create in that sense, you know, like they're
It
not
still took
destructive.
intelligent urge. If you had no desire for her and she had no desire for you, then there'd be no intelligent force bringing you together with desire and want and urge for the chemical reactions to even occur in the first place. It has to have intelligent will to do anything.
Well, wait,
We
pause.
overestimate
What
our
about
intelligent
what about
will.
animals like coral or even like plants that
Jellyfish.
they just reproduce by flinging out their sperm and eggs right into the air?
I think we
Yeah,
do
but they
for
could still
truth.
have a
The
perhaps
chemical
they have
reactions
a
we've
massive
defined is
orgasm at
more
the time
important.
too.
Okay, Iron Horse.
Let me get out of here.
What about
I
just
can smoke a bowl.
what about the most very simple chemical reaction that you can possibly imagine? Just a bunch of reactants turning to a bunch of products. If you're familiar with chemistry, the term Le Chatelier's principle should mean something to you, where chemical reactions tend towards an equilibrium. And if you have too much reactants on one side, you'll get more products. There's always a balance that is found. This is a principle that can be stated by rules of logic, but it's just a chemical reaction. There's not even any life. It's the most simple, basic chemical reaction you can even imagine, and it displays the kinds of things that you're trying to say are only the result of will or intent or intelligence. The most basic chemical reaction there is.
Yeah, but again, I say that they're just destructive. Like, going back to the example of stars, saying that they're a thermonuclear reaction, well, that is a destructive force, and it usually quickly burns out if we ever do anything explosive like thermonuclear reactions here on the ground. They're destructive, and it creates toxic sort of byproducts, and stars aren't that at all. You can create sonoluminescence in water using sound frequency alone, and that creates the star in a jar effect. So many things are assumed to be correct. Like even back in the day, the sun used to be a ball of flaming gas when we knew how to burn gas to make light, and then it becomes a thermonuclear reaction.
Iron Horse, really fast. I'll just give you an example of a chemical reaction that is creating something and is not destructive, all right? The formation of a snowflake.
That's water freezing, yeah.
So how is that destructive? That's a chemical reaction creating something new.
Is it though? It's really just water changing its state because of the temperature.
Into a unique pattern that was not there before. That's creating something new. If you say that is not creation, then the creation of life is really nothing.
Well, it does show
all the molecules were still there already. I mean,
it does show the structure of intelligent creative force. You know, it's always
where's the intelligence in creation of a snowflake? Where's the intelligence?
Well, each snowflake is unique. They're all special little snowflakes. The six-sided thing is like the building block of life. So it just indicates that there must be intelligent creative force behind everything in the first place for it to create such symmetry.
So you think
nothing destructive creates symmetry?
So you think
wait.
You honestly think that there's an intelligent force that creates every snowflake? And that because it's very clear and obvious to show that intelligence is nowhere involved in the creation of a snowflake.
I think it shows its fingerprint, but I'm not saying it's behind it. You know, it's just a result of the origins of everything. Like water, I believe, is love manifest. That's what I believe water is. And without water, there is no life. Without life, there's no love.
How is water love manifest? How can you show that is the case?
From the creative force. See, somebody also said way back when we started about coming from a vacuum. See, I don't believe the universe is a vacuum. I believe that all of existence begins as black ice, nothing but endless black ice. And so the first creative force is the first spark of life, which then melts the ice and creates a realm.
This is just fan fiction.
Liquid water.
Yeah, this is nonsense.
This is fan.
If you want to go back to the very, very origins, if you don't want to start from the very beginning, then you're never going to get to where we are now.
I'm just saying,
if you start with a spark of consciousness that is light, light creates heat. Heat melts ice.
This is all this is.
Turns into water, and that leaves a space because ice expands. So you've got a realm which is air, and
this is just Gallop. This is all this is. It's just saying one thing after another after another.
No. This is.
Hold on. I want to be able to speak. Ross.
Yeah, let's give him a chance there, Ross. Yeah. Moderator vibes coming back on. Let's see.
Fine. Let Mark waffle and tell me how stupid I am. That's fine.
What evidence? I never said you were stupid. What
did.
evidence do you have of this? Okay, Benty, thank you. What evidence do you have that there is this creative force? Like, what can you present us with to show that it is in actual fact a real thing and not just the product of imagination?
The simple fact that nothing exists that's man-made that didn't start as a thought, the vibrational frequency of that, and then it becomes manifest. Nothing man-made. So therefore, anything in existence had to have started as a thought if it has some sort of intelligent design behind it. It just doesn't happen by sheer random chance of chemical reactions if you've got nothing to begin with.
That's a fallacy.
You might think that's a fallacy.
No, I'll point it out. That's called, Ross, no. That's called affirming the consequent. Just because man-made things originated with somebody thinking about it doesn't mean you get to apply that to all of reality, including nature. You have to demonstrate that, because things that aren't man-made don't have the same properties as man-made things. Like, we can design a bicycle, but you won't find one in nature. The two things are different, natural versus man-made. And if everything is man-made, then you've got to show the man that made that natural thing, that made that leaf, that made that thing.
But
you've got to show that.
Why would you even
Hang on. Not just assert it as a begging the question that is a fact ahead of time. Where is this person that created it? Or, okay, if you don't like man, where is the entity that created this? And how do we know that it has a mind?
Okay.
But so before you answer, Iron Horse.
Hold on there, buddy.
So to help cut down on the chaos a little bit, Iron Horse, I'll give you 30 seconds. Then Mark, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I say, why even assume an entity in the first place? If you understand that everything is spirit, then you don't need an entity. Everything is an essence of God. There's nothing in existence which isn't of God. So the minute you say there's something separate from God, you're not talking about God. You're talking about something completely different, which you've then called an entity, which is external. It's not external. It's all internal. Everything is within. Everything was within the mind of God. So there's no external influence. It's all internal. I can't do it on the timer. That's too much pressure, man.
Too much pressure. Okay, so I started the timer.
Okay, start the timer. So an entity is just anything in reality. That's all that it means. Anything. So it's basically in a broad category of things that exist, basically. So if you're saying that God isn't an entity, that you're basically saying that God doesn't exist. Because without being an entity, anything is an entity. If it's a thing, then it's an entity. It's the most broad term possible to say something. So when you say external, I don't even know what that means. So an entity is just a thing. And so you've basically said, and you've sort of exposed that you think it's a God or this mind. You still haven't answered how you can present any evidence that this mind actually exists and it isn't just your imagination, because you just went back to it exists.
Okay, my turn. Yeah, no. See, again, you're still only trying to understand things from a purely physical point of view, whereas spiritual is beyond the physical. So it's not an entity. It's not a thing. It's not a being that creates stuff. It is just the entire universal mind that has created the spirit, and these creator spirits then manifest into various things, including physicality, which the ones that become life are the ones that get stuck in being physical beings, and the only thing they can do is reproduce, but they can't return back to spirit while they're still physical.
Let's move to 45 seconds. 45 seconds there, Mark.
Okay, so there's also things that are beyond the physical called your imagination. And what I'm asking is, what criteria and what methodology do you have to distinguish what is beyond the physical and spiritual from your imagination? And you don't seem to have a way to distinguish the difference.
No, well, that's the whole point of spiritual understanding, is that you can understand things intellectually or you can understand things intuitively. And once you understand them intuitively, then you know that there has to be a higher creative source to create higher forms of life or higher forms of anything. Like you say, a bicycle can't just create itself out of nature, but look at a person or a dog or any living thing is so amazingly miraculous in a sense. We can't even come close to replicating it. So whatever he did create that in the first place had to have made it perfect in the beginning. There's the chicken and the egg theory type of thing, that they both had to exist simultaneously.
40 seconds.
Okay, so when you say miraculous in a sense, what you could say is miraculous as a metaphor. And yeah, it's miraculous as a metaphor, but I don't think it's an actual miracle occurred. And you still haven't presented how you can differentiate between your imagination and what you think is spiritual. You're just asserting that using intuition, which intuition isn't particularly reliable, that using intuition, you know that it exists. But all you're doing is convincing yourself you can't be wrong, not showing why anyone should believe what appears to be your imagination making this stuff up. So you have no way to distinguish between the two. And even if you do, you can't articulate what it actually is.
Well, no, you can't. And that's the whole point of understanding something that isn't a thing. It's not a is. It is imagination in a sense, because imagination is the inspiration of everything, of every design comes from the inspiration of the imagination. So therefore, the spiritual mind, if you are connected with it, that is where you're going to get your best ideas from. You're trying to put the cart after the horse, whereas really the cart comes before, whereas really the cart comes after the horse. Without the horse, then there is no cart, there's no message being carried through. You have to have the spirit of the horse to carry it through in the first place. So the imagination, the mind, the inspiration comes from a higher spirit. That's where it all begins.
Yeah, so you're the one putting the cart before the horse, because basically you're saying, hey, what I'm convinced of comes first, and then I find the reasons to believe in it. So then I give myself the justification. So what this is begging the question. You're basically saying, hey, I'll start with the conclusion that there is a spiritual force, and then I'm going to find the reasons why I can make that work. So this is what you're doing. What I'm asking is, our imaginations can come up with all kinds of weird and wonderful things that can tell us that this thing's real, that thing's real. We know that that's not reliable because a lot of those people do horrible stuff and they get it wrong. So you don't have a way to differentiate the difference. So you don't actually have a justification for this belief in this spiritual thing. You're just assuming it is there beforehand and then finding how to make it work.
45 seconds.
Well, no, you're getting it all backwards as you do, because first we have the observation. So the observation comes first. The physical world exists. Then we ask why it exists. We're not saying it exists because this happened first. Well, we have to extrapolate from the fact that it takes intelligent design to create something of intelligent construction. It's as simple as that. I mean, this backwards and forwards time thing is doing my head in.
I'm just trying to be fair because I'm
because Mark throws so many things at you, and I had a really good idea of things I was going to talk about, and then he just keeps throwing them and throwing them.
I'd personally love to get in on this.
Sure thing. Let's get more people in.
Yeah. Okay. So, again, you're saying that all human-made things have to start as thoughts in people's head, but again, I already brought up the example of a snowflake. You're just saying that you take it on faith. That's each and every unique snowflake started as a thought in God's head. All right, you're just assuming that. That's not an observation. That's not based on any empiricism or any rationality. But I just want to make the point here that all thoughts are material chemical reactions in your brain. Like there's an actual material basis for each of these thoughts. They don't exist without the material that makes them up.
Yeah, I disagree with that. You're the one that keeps bringing up the snowflake idea. You're trying to put that idea or those words into my mouth, which I never said. And I believe the chemical reactions of our brains, the hormones and the different drug feelings, whatever we get from it, that's just a consequence of the action. But the action is separate from the chemical reaction. Again, it's putting the cart before the horse. The chemical reaction is the consequence, but the thought is the inspiration. And the inspiration comes from the spiritual realm.
Here's how we can directly disprove that. All right. If you take any chemical or a strong enough magnetic field, anything that's capable of disrupting the chemical reactions in your brain, your thoughts will change. It's not your thoughts that are driving the chemical reactions in your brain. It's the chemical reactions in your brain that are your thoughts.
That can depend on the individual. I think some minds are capable of taking very powerful drugs and still being capable of not being directed into having alternative thoughts as a result of it. And plus, we will see from experience, if we're given mind-altering drugs, we see from past experiences things we expect to see, like you might see faces and that sort of thing, where faces don't exist if you're on acid. But doesn't mean that that it's actually changing the reality. There's still actually no face there. You're just seeing it. So
yes,
hallucinations isn't necessarily reality.
Obviously,
I think what you're trying to say.
Why? Okay, can I ask you a question? Why do you think that anything that I just said logically entailed that hallucinations are reality? That makes no sense.
You just said if you take chemical drugs, you're changing your reality or something.
No.
No.
So what I said,
perception.
Yeah, what I said was that your thoughts change if you physically change the chemical processes in your brain. And we know this from both chemicals, and you can induce this with a strong enough magnetic field. You can literally change somebody's moral sense of of reality. But I'm not saying reality itself actually changes. Hallucinations are caused by the chemicals diffusing into your brain and randomly pinging the different neurons that go into your visual cortex, and that's what causes you to interpret that random pinging as a face or a hallucination or whatever. None of that has to do
so ultimately you're saying then that chemical reactions only change your thoughts, but it doesn't affect reality. Whereas you begun your argument with saying that chemical reactions are reality. So you got to make up your mind here. Which one is it? The hallucination or the reality? Which is the real thing?
Really?
What you perceive to be real or what is real?
So I think that you're trying to make my statement so ambiguous that you think that there's a contradiction here. What I'm saying is that thoughts are chemical reactions. All things are, well, not all things, but anything made of atoms, when it interacts with other atoms by exchanging electrons, that's a chemical reaction. Everything that entails from that, from the formation of stars to your thoughts, anything you do on a day-to-day basis pretty much is going to entail like a bunch of chemical reactions.
Okay, I can see your problem. And the problem is, I think it's the same thing that happens with all globe believers. And it comes back to the whole gravity thing, is that they put the gravity first, saying that the force creates the reaction, whereas really, well, the force does create the reaction, but the initial force was actually lifting the thing in the first place. And so the thing dropping is just the reaction. So for every action, there's a reaction. So the chemical reaction is a consequence of the action, but it's not the cause of it. It's the reaction of the things that mix together and create a chemical reaction. So everything that we've been taught to believe is pretty much backwards in that we're always putting the cart before the horse.
Okay.
We're always doing it.
So chemical reactions do have causes. All right. That doesn't mean
but it's still the consequence, mate.
But wait.
It's not the cause.
Wait. The cause of a chemical reaction is another chemical reaction. And before that, it's a series of chemical reactions. Like, do you not get that?
So a plant absorbing light, are you calling that a chemical reaction? The photosynthesis?
Yes.
So light is the cause of physicality. And what is light? It's this essence of spirit. It all goes back to the light. It creates physicality.
Light is not.
Yeah, that's what causes the chemical reactions. The chemical reactions are a consequence of the light. Without the light, there's no chemical reaction. But you're trying to put the chemical reaction before the light. You're saying you have to have the chemical reaction, then you have the light. But no, the light comes first.
No. Two particles can interact by exchanging a photon. Wait, for a real second, I'm getting a lot of echo. Is everyone else hearing that?
I heard it for a second there.
Okay.
From someone.
So my only point is that
probably someone face palming.
Two particles can interact by exchanging a photon, right? That's a physical reaction involving light. There's nothing spiritual about that. Light is a gauge boson. It's an excitation of the electromagnetic field. There's nothing spiritual about that.
Yeah, but again, that's just a reaction of what you're observing. But the light itself still has a cause, something that caused it in the first place, and what we experience in the atmosphere in the physical realm is a consequence of that. So you still got to trace everything back to the very first origins, which goes up to a higher dimension, which is what I talk about, where thought comes from.
Before you get onto a higher dimension,
you're in a high dimension.
Before you go,
who's in a high? I'm in a high dimension. I've smoked so much weed. I'm playing with a snake while you guys are talking here. Look at this cute little snake. It's pink. Look at it.
Playing with a snake.
It's not a garter snake.
Cute.
No, it's a little corn snake, and it's my daughter's, but I like it. It's called Sakura because it's pink, like Naruto.
You are high.
That's right. I was gonna say, you want an example? You want to talk about somebody who's the most high? All right, let's continue on. Yeah. I'm just having fun with this little thing.
How come I'm the only one that gets timed when I'm talking with Ross? That's weird. You're weird.
Sorry, buddy. I got distracted by my snake, as you heard.
You did. You did.
My snake is very.
I understand. I accept it. I don't have to like it.
So if you saw my snake, you'd be distracted by it too.
So I probably, actually.
Oh, the ladies.
Okay, folks, this isn't that kind of stream.
So if you just keep it 1 point at a time, Mark, then we won't need a timer.
Well, I was responding to you and your points. That's the thing. Like, if you don't bring up that many points, I won't have to respond to so many of them.
So
that's the
fair
whole
enough.
Point.
Yeah, I just want to point out.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Okay, I just wanted to point out that you had said that you start from observation, but now when I give you actual observations, you're saying that's just our physical observations, and before that is this spiritual realm. But you're saying that you observe the spiritual realm, or you're saying that you have some sort of evidence that it's there based on observations or something. So I have no idea what you're talking about there. But one quick thing, all these interactions with photons all did have causes that are also naturalistic. It's like physics, it's quantum mechanics. So you can continue to trace that backward. It's just naturalistic causes.
I think that double slit experiment is a good example of there really is no photons, so to speak, because in a sense, every set of eyes here in the physical realm, or every living thing, every plant, is one of those slits. So every single one receives the same light. There's not actually physical photons necessarily. It's just the light. It's what drives everything. So everything is sort of every slit creates more photons in the double slit experiment.
No.
There are millions and billions of slits here, all experiencing their own solipsistic version of reality.
You've got to remember that Ross thinks there's a sun for every organism on the planet.
So
there's a version of it. Yes, that's correct. Absolutely, because we've all got our own set of eyes.
I just want to be very clear. Sorry, Mark. I just want to be very clear that this is not an accurate description of what the double slit experiment is. The double slit experiment has the one single photon. The wave function of that photon passes through both slits, but it does not interact with either slits like it does interact with our eyes. And this is the fundamental difference between those slits and our eyes, is that any wave function, such as a single photon, when it interacts and collapses the wave function and interacts as a point-like particle. But the two slits do not interact with the wave function. They do not collapse the wave function. It travels through both slits. This is a fundamental difference between the slits and our eyes.
Okay, so what if you had multiple slits, like say 50 slits?
It would pass through all 50. It's not.
That's what I'm saying.
That does not mean that 50 different photons are created. One single wave function passes through all of them.
Yeah. So every single slit, in our eyes, is a consciousness that receives an interpretation of the reality. So that's why I say yes, there is an individual individual version of it for every single individual thing that can perceive it.
The difference between the slits in that experiment and our eyes, or any of our senses, is that our eyes, for example, they do collapse the wave function of photons when they absorb photons. That's how we see things. They are not analogous to the slits in the double slit experiment, because our eyes, all our senses, collapse the wave function and thus necessarily interact with point-like photons, not the superposition such as the slits in the double slit experiment. There's a fundamental difference between those two things. You cannot equate them.
Okay, that's one I'll have to think about, because I'm not gone into it that deeply, but I basically think that my interpretation of it was more correct in that.
Well, I have taken quantum mechanics in college.
That's cool. You know, like I'm not going to
I
argue
don't
with
think
that.
you'll find any physicist that would agree with you, Ross. Like no physicist would ever agree with you that your interpretation is the more correct.
Yes, but my way of thinking is beyond physics. That's the whole point. It's, you know, physics is very limited to the physical only, whereas once you go once you go into the mental plane and your own interpretation, your own intellect,
your imagination.
Your imagination, if you want to use that word, that's fine. Yeah, that's all good.
Yeah, I do want to use
that's what
that
we
word.
all use. We
Like
all
I said,
use our imagination.
I'm a Hindu now. Yes,
that's why we watch movies,
more
isn't it? So we can have that imaginary feeling, that experience.
Yeah, but they're not
being a
real,
participant
Ross.
in the
Movies aren't
That'd be
real.
for me.
No, that's correct. But
Iron Horse.
But there is a part of our brain that cannot differentiate between what we see and reality. What we see is reality.
Iron Horse, I just
reptilian brain. We all have that.
So
it
Iron Horse.
Fact of reality. Yes.
Iron Horse. I have had multiple different states of consciousness. All right. I've done lucid dreaming. I've done deep meditation, jhana meditation. I've done a lot of psychedelics. I've had multiple different experiences with changing my state of consciousness. And through all of that, I can see the naturalistic material explanation of what happened. And I see no evidence to support any kind of supernatural. So do you have any reason beyond just, you know, these conscious states that you've been in to think that supernatural things exist?
Absolutely, because there's that saying that says, according to your beliefs, so it will be. So you're only going to interpret it from your own basic building ground, what you believe in, what you've experienced, what you expect. That is how you're going to interpret it through that. So if you can interpret it from
does that statement not also
from a higher state of existence and think that it goes the other way, that there's two sides to the mirror, and on the other side is the genuine light, the genuine consciousness, and we're just living on the shadow side of
your imagination.
So if all you've ever experienced is the shadow side, then that's all you're ever going to know. And that's all you're ever going to believe. And if anybody talks otherwise, then you're just going to tell them they're hallucinating, like Mark's trying
You're
to do.
stuck in this idea because you can imagine it, it's got to be real. And that is like the most ludicrous position, that your imagination makes it become reality.
I always get leery. I always get leery when people use like the word true and genuine or other synonyms in the same sentence. Like it's always kind of like, okay. You know, I have to be honest with you. Like that's always just kind of like you're reinforcing an idea with the same concept.
According to your beliefs, so it will be. That is
so. Iron Horse. I want to point out this circularity in your logic that you're using here, because I think that what you're saying applies to your own position, and you're saying that each of your own experiences are also justified based on your beliefs. So then if you're trying to use your experiences to justify your beliefs, that's fundamentally circular.
Oh, this is Dino speaking right now, right?
No, this is Grayson.
No. All right, Grayson, you said you did psychedelics, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and you know, I was gonna say, and I'm pretty sure when you were doing those psychedelics, at some point you went back to the beginning of the universe and you touched the little speck of microfiber that caused the universe to burst into existence, and saw that Iron Horse would be worshiping you so many years later because that experience made you realize that you were God, and nobody can disprove that.
Look, I don't want to confirm nor deny these allegations. All right, we'll just let time tell and see what comes true.
When I was having my experience, I saw you doing it, so I can't.
Yes.
Yeah, so that
means
it's
true.
This is all hearsay, okay?
That means it's
we all come from that original spark, so technically you've got a good point there. Everybody.
Yeah, I think I
saw him do it. Guys. I was just as fucked.
You couldn't have, because you were with him.
So where we start, Ross, is with our minds and what we can sort of evaluate. But all we have that's coming in is your senses. And you obviously believe your senses are real, or else you wouldn't be sitting here talking to us and expecting us to hear you. So you both validate that your senses, that your senses are real and that our senses are real. So what I don't get is how you get past that. What causal link, what chain of reasoning you get from your mind to that hey, my intuition, which is how you feel about stuff, has to be true. Because a lot of people have felt like things have to be true, a lot of different things, and they're all contradictory. They can't be correct. So intuition isn't a reliable way to believe you. But you're saying, hey, because I imagine it, it's got to be real. And that, a lot of people have imagined a lot of stuff. It's not real.
Well, you started with your statement saying that your senses to you are reality, but something you experienced 5 years ago, is that happening right now? It was only real at the time. Every now moment is a moment of existence that comes and goes. So it's all illusionary, really. It's come and it's gone. The only time that's existing is here and now, and this is all that's real. So therefore, it does only exist in the mind and the senses because of what you're experiencing. Where I'm saying that there's more than just the physical senses that we're experiencing here and now. There is a higher mind you can tap into. And if you know it,
Ross,
you know it. You don't need somebody to show it.
What kind of bush was burning when Moses was smelling it? My goodness. I have to ask, because here's the thing is that we just explained the idea that if we have an individual experience, even if I saw somebody else, if I had an experience, whether I ate the wrong food, hallucinogenics, other people are commenting in the chat and asking about that as well. If I have an experience on hallucinogenics and I say, whoa, I caused the universe to come into existence, and I managed to gather a following, and other people are like, yeah, I believe you. Like, wouldn't we be just as grounded as you in this belief?
No,
at the end of the day, because we had the experience.
You're just being delusional.
How do you differentiate yourself from being delusional then?
Well, you have to drop the ego to start with. You can't just be all I, and say it's all about me, even though your
that's
own
what you're doing.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm saying it's got nothing to do with me. It's got nothing to do with my senses. The fact that
we are talking about your opinion right now.
That's right.
You are here
the
in this
opinion
room.
comes from being able to drop the ego.
You're
understand the universe from the point of view without the I involved at all. Whereas all of you guys are just arguing from my experience. It has to be another thing, another separate thing. You know, I'm just saying that I'm
asking you a hypothetical. I've never done psychedelic drugs. I've never had that type of
human
experience.
Consciousness.
I'm asking you.
Maybe you should.
Do you think other humans never had those type of experiences and wrote it down? I know people right now. I know people right now that trip out. Hold on. I know people right now that trip out on substances and have experiences that they believe are true, and then their friends believe it is true. Do you not think that could have happened any other time?
Of course.
Okay.
It's always changing.
It sounds like
the field of knowledge is always changing.
But I don't believe
if we're going to be talking about the origins of life, which is what the whole creation versus evolution theory is, then you have to start from understanding that you need the concept.
Evolution doesn't cover origin of life.
Exactly. So why even bring it up? It's not an argument, evolution versus creation, is it? You've either got creation and then evolution. That's fine.
It was the topic of the debate we're discussing, Ross. It was the topic.
But you can't have a verse.
Are you insane?
How can you have a car versus a car if neither of them were created?
Oh, sure.
I can say this car has evolved better than that car because they were both created. But until you've got creation, you can't. So
you've never heard anybody talk about abiogenesis. Let's kick it over.
Wait. Iron Horse. Here's the analogy. Okay, if we need to prove that two cars got into a car accident, we do not need to know any information about the manufacturing history of either of those two cars to prove that a car accident happened. Evolution.
If that's an accident, man. What are you talking about?
It's an analogy. Do you understand analogies? We're
talking about life, man. Not
even better, to
why
tie it into
keep
something.
talking about destruction?
Just to tie it into something.
Literally, okay.
Hold on.
To make this analogy painfully clear to you, okay? Yeah, evolution is an ongoing action, like the car accident in the equation, in the analogy. And the manufacture of the cars corresponds to the origin of life, abiogenesis, in the analogy. Do you understand that you can talk about analogies to talk about the subject, right? It's not.
You can, but the analogy has to be analogous.
Okay,
a car accident has nothing to do with life existing as it exists.
I already heard
if two
you making...
people fight each other and kill each other, that's not really evolution.
Okay,
that's the
okay. I already heard you making that rebuttal, Iron Horse, and that's why I wanted to inject, because when I hear these flat Earth debates happening, it's not.
You're
just...
not the moderator here, Ryan.
Hold on, I'm not the moderator, but I can inject anytime I want if anybody wants to.
Of course,
shush.
go for it.
So here's the thing: is that what you're doing, and I think a lot of people do, is an incredibly unuseful use of the term "why" when we're looking at the phenomena, because we look at a mass and we say, in the terms of the whole gravity debate, and I'm trying to tie it in an analogous way, so don't take this literally. But if I look at you and I say, "Hey, here's the phenomena: big masses attract objects." And here's the formula in which we used to describe that, and that we called gravity, a formula in which we can discern that. And you look at me and say, well, why do masses attract those objects? We're talking about that's the phenomena, and we're using the formula to describe the phenomena. So do you understand that we're making a distinction between the phenomena and what we can formulate?
Well, you're making an observation. And all your calculations are actually basically just the rate of something dropping in the medium of air. They will drop a little bit faster if you created a vacuum existence. So to think that gravity is even a real thing is ludicrous to begin with.
Okay.
To say that anything would have attraction due to mass.
Can I please respond? Because I wanted to respond to this when he made the point about it not being analogous. And I just really have to respond to this because it's a fundamental misunderstanding of analogies.
Well, I was going to try. I wanted to tie it in.
Please let me respond to this, though.
It's
please.
The same thing,
I beg
right?
you, Ryan, please let me respond.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So if I say to you, oh, you're getting as tall as a giraffe, and you say, well, excuse me, giraffes have horns and I do not have horns. So those two things are not analogous. You would understand that there's a fundamental disconnect in logic that has occurred there. Because what I was trying to make the analogy was for height. You are tall like a giraffe is tall. So you can understand that it does not have to be a perfect one-on-one analogous where every single aspect of the giraffe is completely analogous to the
but the whole point of the discussion obviously is evolution versus creation, and you can't have evolution without creation is all I'm saying. You can't have life evolving without life being created.
So let me explain. I will not use my analogy, but let me explain to you what the point of my analogy is, which you have continued to not get. The point
go for it.
I tried, but you go ahead.
The point of the analogy is that in order to demonstrate that evolution happened and is true, you do not need to have any information about the origin of life, about abiogenesis. That is the analogy that's what the point I was trying to make with the analogy.
Okay, well, that's why I think you're wrong. So it's simple.
So that's why my analogy of evolution, just as the masses that are pulling in objects, that being the phenomena, he is saying that's the phenomena, and here's the explanation for the phenomena.
Yeah, but you would never have the car accident if nobody ever made the cars.
Yes.
You have to have made the cars in the first place for there to be a car accident.
Yes.
If that's your analogy.
No, exactly. You're close to getting it now. The point of the analogy was that you can prove that the car accident happened without any information about the car's manufacture.
Right. Okay.
So that's what I'm saying, that you can prove evolution without any information about abiogenesis.
No. But that doesn't prove evolution at all. It just proves that somebody made
that doesn't prove
cars
evolution.
And cars had an accident.
I
But if
agree with
nobody made the cars, there's no evolution.
I
or the
agree with
accident
you.
in the first
Iron
place.
Horse, I agree with you. I'm not saying that my statement proves evolution. My statement shows.
Well, you are.
No, I'm not. Please listen to my words, okay? I am saying that the analogy shows that you do not need any information about life's origin to prove evolution happened. I'm not trying to prove it with that statement. I'm just saying that you can prove it without any information about abiogenesis. That's the point. We can use other lines of evidence to prove evolution.
Okay, I'm definitely not getting that. You haven't explained it well enough because I'm not
okay,
getting
so when he's saying evolution, Ross, when he's saying evolution, he's not talking about a definition you may be using, which means the entire evolution of the universe kind of thing. That's
Or
what you're
abiogenesis.
tending to say.
Yeah.
Hold it. That's what you're trying to say with
Just
evolution.
trying to assist you here, Mark. That's
From
all.
the universe to the origin of life to life developing. When he's saying evolution, he is only talking about the explanation for the diversity of life after life originated.
Right. So therefore, it's not a debate topic if you're going to say life after life versus creation, because it's not, evolution, obviously, there is selective breeding, there is all that sort of stuff, there is hybridization, there's all kinds of things, but that can't happen without the creation in the first place. So unless you're going to go back then to saying how you got creation to have evolution, then it's not even a topic you're fit to debate.
So if the topic was something about like, did World War II happen? And the other person said, well, you need the Big Bang, you need the universe for World War II to happen. So we should really be arguing about the Big Bang. You would correctly recognize.
That's not a debate.
Exactly. Okay. You really don't get analogies, do you? I'm sorry. I keep making them.
Yeah, but the point is, we are talking evolution being there for somewhere way back in time, the origins of life versus creation.
All right,
So there has
then
to be one or the
let's
other.
go back to that.
There has to be a starting point in creation.
Let's
It's
go
the
back to the
starting point. Evolution
stupid
is just
question I
jumping
asked
in at
then.
the 2 minutes to midnight time.
I want to jump into that stupid question I asked earlier then, which is, how can you prove I'm not a perfect clone of my dad?
Because your mother's DNA infected it.
Okay. And did that cause like any changes? Because I mean, I do look a lot like my mother, and she looks a lot better than my dad, just to let you know. So.
Oh, that's good to know. I'm glad.
Yeah. No, that's all right. My dad.
Does she
always
look like
looked
your
an old
wife
man.
too?
My wife is not. No, we won't get into that. I was gonna say.
Your wife's had enough crap for one day, to be honest.
She's had enough crap. She's over here, but yeah, my wife is. She's got all kinds of differences.
To bring
sure
it back
she's
to the
lovely.
debate, which was the original topic, like that that sexist rant at the end was real. Is it just me who thinks that was really weird?
I did want to tie that back in. That's kind of why I was bringing it up.
Weird.
But at the same time, like I was kind of curious because I always, I do find that weird because my mother is a carpenter and a plumber and an electrician. Like she's literally building houses right now. Like she's
got big balls.
she's 60 years old as well. So like she's no freaking joke. She does not mess around. And it's one of those things. So when I hear people talking about what women are supposed to be doing, I'm like, well, gee, my mom taught me how to do it. My father taught me a lot of carpentry, sure, and how to use a chainsaw, which has been useful to me because people have, encroaching bushes and they call me up and they're like, hey, help me out, buddy. And that makes me money. But, as for like wiring a house, Dad doesn't know any shit about that. He'd kill himself trying to do that stuff. So, that's mom 100%. And I always find it weird when people start putting out those misogynist points and like, oh, women can't do this. Or it always sounds to me like I was playing a game with my buddy the other day. We're playing arcade. And every time I screwed up and he had a female player on the screen, I was just like, oh, well, I have trouble in female spaces. It messes me up. I just can't focus. It just I can't work in these places with females because of these incel type Jordan Peterson type people that, propagate this sort of thing of women can't do those things. And it's like, well, if you tell a society that they can't do a thing, then maybe they won't. That's probably 80% of the problem. I don't want to put statistics on it, honestly, but
kind of ironic that this debate, this discussion started talking about chemistry, and now we're talking about mothers. And in fact, I grew up in a pharmacy household because my mother is a chemist. She's a pharmacist, and both my two eldest children both did double degrees in chemical engineering. So, I do know a little bit about chemistry and that sort of stuff.
What does your mum and your children think about your take on chemistry?
Take on the chemistry.
We
don't talk about
originates from the mind kind of thing. Have you shared this with them at all? You haven't asked them.
No. This is the only time I've ever jumped into a discussion about it, saying how the spiritual thought eventually created physical life, and that physical life is what, when it's dead, that's the stuff that makes the chemicals that other stuff builds upon. I believe it had to have started with something living in the first place in the water, like an algae bloom, for example.
Well, hold on, not to call you out, but you're doing what you accused us of earlier. You're saying I. He asked you what your family thinks.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what they think. I can only think through my own mind.
So you
think through their mind.
They haven't
just
seen you
because they're related to me doesn't mean we think the same thought.
I. That's essentially what you're saying.
No, he's saying that he doesn't talk about this stuff with his family.
Well, if you want to know about my
but
thoughts,
he's sort of saying, hey, I know this, and
their
I
thoughts,
have this,
his thoughts, her thoughts, their thoughts. I can only talk about my thoughts. So yes, if that's a problem for you because I'm expressing my own thoughts, then there's no point me being here.
Well,
just go and talk to them.
It was justly pointed out that we are talking about I think this and I think that, and you leverage that against us to say, hey, you only talk about yourself, and then you do exactly the same.
You're talking about the physical, whereas I'm talking about the origins behind the physical. I'm not
your imagination.
No, we're talking about
again. If you want to call it my imagination, that's fine. I'm okay with that word. It's not a problem. Because
brain,
I exist
physical,
in reality.
Sound, physical. You telling your friends, family, you believe these things. That was the question. So you're talking about.
I don't discuss this sort of things around family gatherings.
That was what we were asking.
I came to a debate about evolution versus creationism to talk about these things.
Mark, don't ruin his
on a similar mindset. I don't want to discuss this around. Family.
No, just like Iron, you're probably making a good choice. I don't bring up a lot of the stuff that I discuss on the show. At my family get together, some people ask me about the things that I'm talking about and into, but I try to keep it really light. So, I respect that point where you're.
I even tried to talk about the moon at our last family gathering, and I got shut down and told, "No, we're not going to talk about that. We're talking about something else now." And it's like treating me like a little kid again. So I just got up and walked away and haven't spoken to them since.
Oh well, I was preaching the opposite. Is that we would maybe like sometimes better just to say nah and just try to meet your family on the areas they are. But
and we were meeting on it. Anyway, we won't go into that.
But yeah, Mark, you were saying about, and that was the point that I was expressing, is the sexism that was really pouring out from Ross at the end of that discussion, because I was sitting there and none of that had been discussed, and he was talking about how he wasn't
talking about how strong of a guy he was too, like just the insecurity was dripping off of him.
I said to Mark after the debate, when I got off the line with Hake and Leo when they had their debate, I was me and Hake had like a half an hour of discussing afterwards, right? And it's one of those weird things where it's like you're dangerous because you're actually kind of likable, but like you spread a lot of really dangerous ideas, in my opinion. But you'd be surprised. He can talk and have a good conversation, back and forth, whatnot. Shit, I forgot my point. Back to the booze, everybody. But yeah, sexist points. Mark, you kick us off while I remember what I was going to say about Hake.
No, you were talking about like chest beating from the guy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I told you after the debate. Yeah, he was saying, about how men have to be men, and I was kind of picking at him about like how he's never been like an official fight, and I was like, oh yeah, I was like, when I was growing up, we were always having fights because I was in karate and I have my black belt, and I was like, do you have a black belt, Hake? And he was like, no, I never did karate growing up, and I was like, oh, that's pretty beta. And just kind of picking on him, right? And I said to him, I was like, surely though, I was like, growing up as like a traditional man, you must know how to use a chainsaw. I was like, I use a chainsaw almost every day. And he was like, no, I don't really use a chainsaw. And I was like, oh man, you must have those little beta hands, the type that you can't put too much sanitizer on because they'll peel, I was picking on him so
just
bad.
Laying on the trolling, huh?
You're a mean
I
man.
was so mean to him after the debate, but he still messages me on Outlook. He wants to have more debates, and we have a lot of fun, honestly, when he's on. But yeah, he's got some really extreme views. But I always like having that point because these guys act as if they're really manly men, and they're always preaching on the side of men. And And it's like, okay, well, what do you do that's kind of like traditional manly men? And it's like, I'm just a skinny little shit over here. You know, you're acting like some big tough guy. What do you do? And it's like, I don't do anything that's like traditionally alpha. It's like, okay, you know, and I don't even believe in the concept of alpha and beta. That's kind of stupid to me. But like, as in the way that they think about it, I love to troll. I will not lie.
All right.
But what do you guys think
Ryan?
about the? Oh, sure. Yeah. What?
Have you ever flipped a 4-wheeler?
Me? No. I was going to say I've been a.
I did it once. It was terrible.
I've been on my fair share of 4-wheelers, but majoritively, you know, I've been really responsible because when I was growing up, the main 4-wheeler that I had to drive was a friend of mine's, and if I would have screwed it up, I would never have been allowed. So, but yeah, let's get back to the juicy stuff. Yeah, we got into some really.
You're not the moderator of this, Ryan.
I am not the moderator.
Like, you're
I can
acting
steer
like
it
the
back.
moderator. Stop.
I can steer it back anytime I want, Mark. I can dance. Anyways,
I did want to make a point about. I mean, this is something back to the evolution creation topic. Is that okay, or are we on?
Oh, the topic of the
look at
debate.
Grayson.
No, the topic. Why would we discuss?
Speaking
the
of
topic
alpha
the debate?
males, look at this. Look at this example of an. Look at him. My God.
So,
all right, go ahead.
Iron Horse. You were saying that fundamentally these two things are like different, like creationism and evolutionism, because creationism involves the origin of life, and we're saying evolution doesn't. So they should have not been even debating the topic. But I want to say that evolution, as Mark pointed out in the debate, is the origin of biodiversity, the different species. So creationism does say that these different species were created separately. So evolution does make sense to be pitted against creationism, not in regards to the origin of life, but the origin of species. So those, as long as you can recognize that those are two different ideas, right? The origin of species would just say that, you know, birds evolved from a certain pathway and, you know, humans evolved from a different pathway. They were not created separately. They do share common ancestry. So we can talk about evolution versus creation within that context without needing to go into creationism versus abiogenesis, for example.
Okay, that's a fair point, and it's one actually I quite like to use quite a lot. In that, sorry, I went and decided to have a smoke myself. Is that when you talk about then birds having evolved, for example, that's a great example because the way I see it, a feather, unless it actually works perfectly as a flight feather in the first place, along with all the other feathers that they've developed along their wingspans, each one of them is going to be useless and a hindrance. It's going to be dragging in the mud or snagging in bushes or somehow slowing them down. So until it's actually working as an effective feather to give them assistance to actually fly from the beginning, then it's going to be useless. So you would never evolve it. You're going to go a different path and stay a lizard, for example.
I think Doc.
Don't mind me. I'm going to pick up a
flaps
few
of
pictures
skin.
here.
I think Doc definitely wants to take that one.
Go for it, Doc. Let's hear this.
Don't mess with the main mod. Let's hear it, Doc.
Well, okay. So first, we have evidence of feathers in many lineages of not just birds, not just dinosaurs,
Cats,
all kinds of archosaurs that could not fly or didn't use feathers to fly. We have basal feathers in pterosaurs, which are really just fluffy filaments to help keep them warm. We have stuff like that in plenty of dinosaurs. You can there's a mutation you can cause in crocodilians in order to cause them to grow feathers, which, you know, kind of odd. You know, like what use would a crocodile have for feathers? But they can have them. Here's the pterosaur. If I zoom in a bit, might be able to tell a little bit of the fuzz there.
I'm not taking her to bed with all those teeth. My God, look at that.
Oh yeah, a lot of them. All kinds
fucking
of
row.
And I also briefly.
And here is Sinosauropteryx. This is a small, fluffy dinosaur, completely covered with downy, fluffy feathers, and we know they are feathers. And
they're not
we
just
actually know
deformed
what
scales
colors
that
it
didn't
had.
quite work properly.
$14.
They were feathers.
Order that in.
can I just really briefly weigh on this? Like, even just
Yeah.
beyond feathers and dinosaurs, I want to use his logic to talk about peacock tails, right? Male peacocks have these huge, massively impractical tails, right? You're saying, oh, won't they just hit everything like the bushes and the trees? The same arguments that you were using for like feathers. Like, peacocks will debunk that logic, and it's called sexual selection. Like, between mates, they can select for traits that might be very impractical.
But doesn't that then suggest intelligent design if there's nothing practical about it?
No.
How would it have been practical to evolve
the
that?
Intelligence is the sexual selection. It's basically the female peacock saying, hey, we're going to select for that trait.
Yes, but meanwhile, they're surviving in the world full of, flesh-eating dinosaurs and velociraptors and all the rest of things that want to eat it. How is that going to be a survival trait while it's getting to that point of being absolutely stunningly beautiful towards its sexual mate?
So what evolution does is, or what evolution cares about, is how many children you have, or more specifically, how many grandchildren you have. So as long as you can get to the point where you can breed, doesn't matter if what gets you there is heavily impractical afterwards. That's why, like, when humans live a long time, they start to develop a ton of problems, because most of those problems don't usually appear until well after breeding age, let's say.
Well, that's an interesting thought, but I still think that the practical art of surviving to breeding age in the first place would take precedent over all the other things of looking pretty and all the rest.
If a peacock's tail ever got so long that it just died before it got to mate, guess what? That it's not going to mate. It's not going to pass on those genes. That's going to be the limit for how long an impractical a peacock tail can get.
Yep.
That suggests to me
there is a
huge
limit
amount of
for
isolation.
peacocks.
I think he's compensating for something, everybody. Honestly, I got a jet because I got to get up early in the morning with the kiddos there. We got our final... Yeah, I was going to say...
Thanks for moderating, Ryan.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I hope you guys have a good after discussion about the debate there. But yeah, this bird's definitely compensating for something. But yeah, my daughter's got sailing lessons in the morning. So
it's called a peacock for a reason.
Oh, fun.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan, before you go, can you put in a good word for me at Modern Day Debates? I definitely want to get my second debate under my belt there.
Sure thing. Yeah. Well, if you want to send me an email or are you in our
You can debate Ross next.
I would actually love to debate Ross next if you guys are still having him, because that way he kind of brings a bit of a fire dumpster to whatever stream. So I understand if you guys don't want to have him back, but if you did, I would definitely take that debate.
Do you have an opinion on flat Earth?
Yes, I would definitely debate you on the flat Earth.
Because that's my thing.
I was going to say
do that.
Yeah, if you want to debate Ross, that's fine. But if you want to debate Iron Horse, I think I'd prefer that.
For sure.
I would prefer that.
There you go.
I am Ross.
Well, you're Ross.
No, we're talking about Ross from tonight.
Ross from tonight. Sorry. Yeah. No, sorry.
Yeah, sorry,
Iron Horse is also Ross. But yeah, no, we're talking about Ross from tonight. But yeah, if you want, I would prefer you to debate Iron Horse than to debate Ross from tonight, because
I've been really wanting to get my first flat Earth debate under my belt and another debate at Modern Day Debates. So it would be perfect. I'd appreciate it.
All right. Well, you're on our Discord. Are you on Modern Day Debate Discord?
Yeah, as Dr. Dido and Mark Reid know, I'm terrible at Discord, but yes, I'll try to figure out how that works.
All right. Well,
I'd like to be on the channel too, but y'all require us to have faces now.
Yeah, that is true. It does help. But I will say,
between Mark and I got me banned from the Discord, so I can't be on Discord anymore.
But even better,
well, Grayson, I don't think I had much to do with that, Ross. Like, you
were a moderator, and I contacted you privately to say something to you that I didn't want to say publicly.
And what did you say?
Because I abused the moderator privately, you can't do that. So
what did you say, Ross? Do you want to?
I can't remember. So I just called you.
All right. Well, yeah, I was gonna say, let me get out of here, and I want to talk to Grayson for a second here. Grayson, send me an email, bcberrycharlie@adt@outlook.com. bc.adt@outlook.com. I'll put it in the
Do you
chat
want to
for
just
you.
type it in the private
Yeah,
chat?
private chat would be much appreciated if you could put that there. Then I'll email you. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that works out even better. And just
Iron Horse, thank you for agreeing to debate me on Flat Earth. Finally, somebody will do Flat Earth. Howard has been talking mad shit in emails to me, trying to get me to debate on Flat Earth, but he'll only do
Howard.
Standing for Truth channel, and it's Standing.
Is that Howard Stirrup?
Huh?
Is that Howard Stirrup?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I would much rather
Oh,
debate you,
jeez.
Iron Horse, than just open that whole can of worms and have a fun lobotomy.
I'll be honest with you, Grayson. I think Iron Horse. Yeah, I've watched a few of your debates, Iron Horse, and what I will say, the difference between if you've ever watched did you watch Kyle Reid versus Mark? Or sorry, Kyle. What's his name? Kyle
Adams.
Kyle Adams versus Mark.
Oh,
Reid.
yeah.
Not
Mormon
yeah.
guy, right?
Yeah, the Mormon fellow.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if you had a debate that versus that individual, you'd get into the same issue that you get into with Kyle Adams, which is just kind of like, well, you prove it isn't. Definitions.
Yeah, Kyle is awful.
I would
He's
say
a nice guy,
he's
but
awful.
yeah,
he is very nice, but
It's
as I say,
embarrassing.
unfortunately, he absolutely puts all the onus on the other person, even when the onus is on him. Or I think Iron Horse would actually give you, a screen share or a good presentation of what he believes in the flat Earth, and actually give you, something
Still
that you
can't
can
actually
stick your
do a
teeth in.
screen share. I don't have
You
like
can't?
well, I can, but I don't have the background stuff on my computer. Like, this is a fairly new laptop because my old one died, and so I've been doing everything on the phone for so many years now.
Either
Last couple
way,
of years, I've got really nothing to present. Is what
the
I'm
point
saying.
is that you don't cave into the cowardice of, well, prove it isn't.
Yeah.
Which drives me nutty when I'm trying
sure.
to moderate. I'm like, oh, okay, the onus is on you and everybody else to kind of explain why they don't agree with you.
I think in a debate, even if one person is defending the debate, I think that both have sort of an obligation to present something. You know what I mean? Like some
Why
kind
you
of
disagree.
argument. Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate it when
You
people
can
are
do
like,
that
I disagree,
verbally.
and they're like, why? And they say, well, because I don't think you presented enough evidence.
Yeah, of course. Do it
Oh, well, what
verbally.
evidence do you think I
saying
didn't
you
present?
can't
Well, I would,
do it
you know what I
verbally.
mean? Like, it can drive me a little nutty, but I'm going to jump out here because I got to go to bed, and I got to get up in like
Thanks for
3
joining
hours.
us.
Good night,
It's a
fellas.
night.
Can you put your email
Catch you
in
later,
there?
Okay.
Ryan.
Yeah, I did put my email in there. So
Oh, you did?
I did. Yeah, you didn't see it. It's in the YouTube live chat.
Oh, okay, not the
Oh.
private. Okay.
Oh, and say
Make sure you got
Grayson.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, you got it? All
So
right. I'm going to jump out. Cheers, everybody. Good night.
Later.
That's
Night.
it there.
Yeah. By the way,
But,
Ross, just quickly, I've got
Sure.
the screenshot. I can share with you what you said to me if you'd like. If you feel like you didn't say anything particularly.
Oh, really?
wrong, I can certainly. Yeah.
No, dear.
Wow,
course.
that's pretty anal of you. That's awesome.
That's what we do when we're moderators. We get evidence
True.
of, like, we don't just say, hey, somebody said this. We screenshot it to
Okay,
say,
what
hey,
did
this
I
is the
say
evidence.
that you drove me?
Okay,
there?
let me read it out, and this should be funny. I find
Read
you
it out.
unacceptable and your anal ability to ban people from corresponding on a non-partisan channel. Fucking Nazi, you hypocrite. I'm a fucking Semite, you fucking moron.
Oh,
There you go.
Yeah,
You
so a bit of
anti-Semitic
anti-Semitism. Well, I don't know where you got that from, and maybe you don't remember saying it, but I
Well,
don't know
because-
where you got that from.
I think you were timing me out, and I get pissed off at censorship in general. So
That's because you're abusing people, Ross. You're abusing them.
yeah, but that's the point of debate, isn't it? If they're going to be abusive to me, then I can fight back fire with fire.
No,
You know,
but
if they
people
just
weren't being
attack my
abusive
argument,
to
I won't
you,
be
Ross. You
abusive
just
to the person
abuse
at all.
people. You
Yeah,
just
but I get
abuse people. That's what you do.
I only do it when I'm being attacked personally. It's the only time. If you're not
That is
personally
not
attacking
true.
me or attacking my intelligence, or for example, when you're saying you're a fucking moron, well then I feel that you're having a personal
Nobody
attack
said
against
that to
me,
you,
and
Ross.
that opens up the channels for me to have a personal attack back at you. But if you don't say that, and you say, no, I think you're wrong because of this and this and this, then I'll say, I respect that, and I'll respond accordingly. But
So
as
what
soon
did
as you
I
start
say
with-
to you that warranted that kind of response? What
I'm not
exactly
saying
did
that
I
it
say?
was necessarily something you said, But
So
whatever
you
I
do
got timed
attack
out
people
for-
without them attacking you
Whatever
first.
I got timed out for by the moderator shows how they were being very selective in who they're moderating and timing out.
Oh, come on.
That's my position. If you don't like it, that's too bad. We've all got our own position. And if you're going to time people out for something you don't like, but not the other person as well, I just think that that's biased.
Nobody did that.
Censorship. Well, I wouldn't have sent you that message otherwise. I know myself. I get a little bit
Yes, you would,
time.
Ross. You pretend this innocent act. Yes, you would. You actually, the earlier survey, you accused me of being a pedophile. You remember that, don't you?
Full Mr. Batman. Jeez.
Yeah. So this is what Ross does. He
I think I
goes
might
and
have
he
used it as an
assaults
example.
people. Hang on, shut up, Ross. He abuses people.
okay,
He
Mark.
calls them names, and then he'll basically say, "Well, I don't remember doing that." No, maybe you don't, Ross, but you still did it, and it's really unfair. And it really why you do this, and then you want to claim, "Oh, I don't attack anybody that doesn't attack me first," which is bullshit because you attacked me at least twice, and I did nothing to deserve it. Nothing.
Well, from your point of view, you might have thought you'd done nothing. But if you're going to go and accuse me of things in the first place, like Ross is a moron because he believes the earth is flat.
When did I say Ross is a moron? When did I say that?
I'm just saying that as an example. I'm not saying you did. But all I'm saying is if you're going to put false accusations onto me, then you have opened up the channels for me to put false accusations onto you, even though I know
I never accused you of I never accused you of that. That is absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
Okay,
well then
okay. Let's wipe the slate clean. I apologize for the nasty things I may have said to you in the past, and I won't do it again.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, I just got the warm fuzzies all over. Yes.
In lighter news, Grayson, you had a fun 10-minute debate the other day. I saw on your channel.
Yep. Debated a creationist for 10 minutes, and then he left.
Is it rage quit? Yeah, I saw that. He rage quit really hard. He got so upset too. It was weird.
He said that he was upset that I had an answer for everything he said. I'm like, that's a debate, right? That's what you're supposed
to.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's being prepared, I guess. What did he expect you to be flabbergasted by everything that you said?
He thought that I was trying to out-knowledge him, and he felt belittled or felt stupid if I knew something and had a response to what he said. I don't know. I wasn't trying to make him feel bad or insult him.
No, I gotcha. Yeah, no, I gotcha.
You were being pretty polite. He got you a little riled up, but you weren't too bad.
If I can speak on behalf of the creationists, I think that is most of their problem, is that they're basing their creationism idea on something that's, in my opinion, blatantly false. They've just been given the totally wrong concept to begin with, even though they understand why you can't have something come from nothing. The reason that they're given is based on very false premises, and so they're standing on very shaky ground to try and defend that position unless they know what they're talking about.
So here's the thing, and this is the thing that I want to following on from what Ross said, that people are calling you stupid. Just because someone says you're wrong doesn't mean they're saying that. This Ross Iron Horse. I'll just refer to Ross as Iron Horse from now on. But it was said by you just then, Iron Horse, and also Ross in the debate. He said, "Oh, you're calling me stupid," and I never said anything of the sort. I've been wrong about stuff before. I've been wrong about plenty of things. Everyone can be wrong. Sir Isaac Newton was one of the greatest geniuses, possibly the greatest genius in history. And he believed in alchemy, which wasn't true. It didn't work. Nobody is making a commentary on your intelligence by just saying that you're wrong. That's the problem here. People go, "Oh, well, you're saying I'm wrong. You're saying I'm unintelligent." No one is saying that.
I can see where it's coming from, though, because by saying that you're wrong, it then means that your ideas, which are your fundamental beliefs about a thing, mean that you're an idiot. I can see where that feeling comes from.
Do you get what Mark was just saying, though? Where if he says Newton was wrong about alchemy, he's not saying Newton is an idiot. He still thinks Newton's a genius, even though he was wrong about some things.
Yeah, I understand that, but that's a it's saying yes, but type of situation, isn't it? Oh, he was great, but he was really wrong about this, so therefore he's an idiot.
But what I don't get is why people are allowed to say I'm wrong, like about the shape of the Earth, like you, Iron Horse. You say I'm wrong about that, but you're not calling me stupid when you do that. So I don't understand why it is a one-way street here. That people are allowed to say that I'm wrong.
If you believe we live on a spinning ball in outer space, I really do actually think you're stupid. Look, don't get me wrong.
So you think Albert Einstein was stupid?
Sorry?
I mean, you think Albert Einstein was stupid?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Because he said, there is no detectable, no optical way of determining motion of the Earth, although the Earth goes around the sun. You're saying, I have this belief, so despite all the lack of evidence for it, I'm going to believe it anyway. And that's stupid. You have to have evidence to have a belief. You can't just say, I believe it because it seems like a good idea. And that's what Einstein was basically saying. There's no way of detecting the motion of the Earth, but we go around the sun. And that's Hitchens' razor.
Get the irony of that.
Get rid
that you
of
don't have evidence for this mind that you've been talking about all this time.
I do, because I've seen the result. The result comes after the horse, which is the mind that created it. It's when you see the results and you can extrapolate from the results what must have caused in the first place, then Yeah,
but I asked you for evidence of this mind, and you basically said I don't have to have it because I have this intuition or this gut feeling or this whatever it is that you called it, that I called imagination. Hang on a second, that I called imagination, and basically refused to provide any evidence for it.
Existence is the evidence. We are here. We are here right now, talking flesh and blood, breathing the air, light all around us. We are the evidence.
Evidence of what?
Of creation.
That's not evidence of creation. That's evidence that we're here.
Yeah, I could just say that's evidence for evolution with just the equal amount of. I mean, that just
But again, though, but evolution is only stepping in, 2 minutes to midnight type of thing before the event. You still got to extrapolate all the way back to.
Wait, 2 minutes?
How did it come about?
What are you talking about?
I think he's saying that because evolution doesn't explain the origin of the universe or the origin of life, that that we can't say that we're here because of evolution, because it only comes in at the end of a much longer process.
Well, abiogenesis handles that. That's not a problem.
Yes, but it doesn't.
Evolution deals with life once life exists.
There's no evidence of your one either. That's the thing. You keep saying there's no evidence of this. No, because you can't use what. Okay, so creationism would explain why we're here. Abiogenesis and evolution would explain why we're here. So you're saying the fact that we're here is the evidence for one, even though it can be explained by the other as well. So it's not evidence for your side.
But yours is incomplete. It doesn't explain anything.
And nobody's saying that abiogenesis, we know that that's the case. It's the best explanation we have, but no one's saying it's like evolution.
Well, okay, so that's your best explanation. My best explanation is that it comes from a higher vibrational dimension of existence where consciousness is so much greater than the slowed down.
But you keep saying you have evidence of that, and you don't.
Sorry, Ross, can you demonstrate any evidence of that higher dimension? Like anything to indicate it could exist?
Well, I think
until you could do that, then it's sunlight. Sorry, but it's useless to this discussion.
Okay, well, I think sunlight is evidence of it because I don't believe that it's a thermonuclear fission ball in outer space. I believe that we are seeing light.
Thermonuclear.
Okay, whatever. All I'm saying is I don't think
not fission.
It's fusion now.
Yeah.
It's always been that the fusion. What are you talking about?
I think that the fusion that we see is actually as the plasma passes through the firmament, which I believe is above the Earth because the Earth isn't moving. is what is reacting into the hydrogen with such intense force and energy that then it fuses into helium, which creates the plasma ball of light. And then further down, closer to Earth, it's where it interacts by ionizing the noble gases of light to give us daylight. And that's what's the giver of life. So without the atmosphere, without all these things, there is no life.
So there's no plasma of light. Plasma is not made of light. It's made of ionized atoms. And there's no light of or plasma, like there's no light of noble gases. Like you're throwing out a lot of terms that are not related to each other.
Well, see, that's where I think you have to understand the entire flat Earth model. See, most people start thinking with this outer space idea and stars being fusion balls. Pardon me for saying fusion. These things in outer space as definite things, whereas I think the only physical realm is the base, the Earth that we live on. And until you can build off that premise and flip your whole mindset around, then none of these things will make sense to you. But the atmosphere is actually quite low to the Earth because of, again, the density and buoyancy equation, because gas has
equation?
Weight.
Hold it.
Everything has a molecular.
What's the formula for the equation for density and buoyancy?
Well, there's no particular formula. It's just saying that everything.
Well, then it's not an equation.
Has density has mass. No, it's not an equation. Well, why do you have to think in equations and mathematics? You know, that's just one train of thought. You don't have to think in mathematics.
I thought
to understand the physical realm interacting with the spiritual realm. You know, the two.
So this is just nonsense. So the formula.
Well, what is music? What's the atomic weight of music?
Well, is it a record or a CD?
No, the sound. The sound.
Okay. Atomic weight refers to specific elements. If you just want to ask what is the weight of music, that is actually calculable because you could just add up all the air molecules that are involved in those sound waves. And
you can't because it's constantly fluctuating. It's constantly fluctuating. That's the whole point. It's a dynamic system. There is no physical thing that you're trying to construct. It's just all dynamic, constantly changing, constantly evolving.
You could calculate it with a margin of error, and you could still get an actual value. You don't have to get it precisely.
Yeah, but it'd be meaningless. It'd be meaningless because you can't put a song onto a scale and say this song weighs 5 grams, this song weighs 4.3 grams or whatever. It's just not the way it works. But it's a dynamic, fluctuating thing. You know, it's constantly changing from one to another. It's all vibration and frequency, not physical mass.
But we can quantify vibrations and frequencies. These are very quantifiable.
You can, and you can add them together, but it's still meaningless. It doesn't.
No, very meaningful. That is information. That quantifiable.
Why is it meaningless?
Okay, so how much weight from this light bulb have I been experiencing in this last hour of sitting here?
How much weight from it?
How much weight from the light bulb of light?
Photons don't
that's
have
what you're trying to quantify.
Zero. Photons don't have mass.
There you go. See? So you can't
calculate
quantify
energy.
Zero is a quantity, Ross. Zero is a quantity. What do you?
No, it's a void. It's nothing.
Oh,
it's quantifiable. No. 1 plus 0 is 1. That's it's you can calculate with 0. It's a quantified value.
Yeah, but 1 what? You have to say a something. 1 is nothing without giving it.
No, there are things in physics that do not have units, like Planck's constant, for example, is unitless, and it still has immense meaning.
So you can't have 1 Planck unit then. You can't have 2 Planck units. That's what you're saying.
Planck units, like the Planck's constant, is not an object, but it is a meaningful. It's the fundamental unit of action, but it's unitless. It doesn't have units after it.
Okay, so there's no 1 plus 0 sort of thing.
I just gave you the meaning of it, and it doesn't have units. And we can talk about.
It contradicted what you just said.
And we can talk about why the photon doesn't have mass, right? There's a reason why it doesn't have mass. It can still interact with things, but saying it has 0 mass doesn't mean that it's just not quantifiable. It is quantified as 0. And there's a reason for that to be. It doesn't interact with the Higgs field.
But we know for a fact that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And so photosynthesis, the chemical reaction, is going to occur from light. They were saying 0 plus something should only be something. It shouldn't be extra. It shouldn't be growth. There should be no little E of growth
No.
happening.
I
They
don't
get
that's
stuff
not how
from
that
other
works.
places. They get like nutrients from the soil and other atoms from other places. It's not like they just.
Photosynthesis is extremely well understood. Like the plants basically just harness the energy
Extremely
from the photons to bind sugars. And they absorb carbon dioxide and water and, like Mark said, nutrients from the soil to grow.
Yeah, but that's
by
again
breaking the bonds in
describing
those
what is
sugars.
But
It's still
Iron
describing what is happening.
I think that what you're not grasping here is that photons do not need mass in order to interact or participate in photosynthesis. Like mass is a form of energy. E equals mc squared. Like the photons are imparting energy, like into all of these downstream things in photosynthesis, but they don't need mass to do any of that.
Well, they do.
They don't.
They do.
Well, what's the
They don't.
M stand for in MC squared?
E equals
Mass.
mc squared is showing that there is an equivalency, like because mass is energy times the speed of light. That doesn't mean all energy has to have mass. That is not a logical thing to take away from that equation.
Well, no, it is. It's what it's saying. It's saying
No, that's not what it's saying.
It's saying
It's saying that any amount of mass can be converted to an amount of energy without any mass. So if you take an amount of mass and convert it to pure energy, that formula can tell you how much energy you get from that. That's what it
so.
shows.
If in the equation E equals mc squared, if you said m is 0, then 0 times anything is 0. So you're saying, 0.
Yeah, I can just
You
give
start with 0, you'll end up with 0.
You
No
know
matter
that there
what,
are
you have to
multiple-
have a thing.
You know that there are multiple formulas for energy. There's also E equals like Planck's constant times frequency, and photons have frequency, so you can calculate the amount of energy they have. You just have to use the right equation.
So frequency then is again in the imagination.
No, frequency is a very
No,
real,
it isn't.
quantifiable, measurable thing.
It's measurable.
You can measure the
But
frequency.
not if it's 0.
Light. What?
But not if it's 0. Like
No,
without mass.
it's not 0.
Are you sure you want this debate, Grayson? Are you 100% sure?
I'm not sure I want this. I don't see where it's going.
Look, E equals HV equals, like, you plug in the frequency, multiply it by Planck's constant, that gives you the energy. There's mass is not involved in that equation. If you want to calculate the amount of energy that is contained within a certain mass, that is when you use E equals mc squared. If there's no mass involved, that's not the right equation to use.
Well, what's H?
H is Planck's constant.
Okay.
It's a unitless constant that is like the fundamental unit of action, which is
There's something in the
integral
imagination.
which is the integral of energy, another
Something-
calculable quantity.
If it has no mass, then it's in the imagination.
No, not at all logical. There's
Well,
nothing.
where does it
Come on now.
exist? In what time and space does this Planck exist?
See this right here? This is light. There's light hitting me right now. It's existing in this time and space. That's physically hitting me and bouncing off to the camera right now.
Yeah, I'm a bit dubious about that as well.
Okay, what about any other massless quantity like a W or Z boson? There's like, or not WZ, sorry, but like gluons or any other kind of measurable massless quantity other than light. I mean, there's multiple of these particles that exist, and they're verified to exist in particle accelerators.
I'll have to take your word for it because I only sort of believe in things that I can see, touch and feel or think of. And I can't.
Then
really
why do
think
you
of it
believe
because
in
I
your
haven't been-
spirit?
Yeah,
But-
all your spiritual stuff that you said you believe in, you're not
Yeah.
seeing that. That's not observable.
Yeah, because I've experienced it. Okay.
You don't believe in only things you
It's
can
something
see.
I've personally experienced.
Yeah, so when
I
when
know
Ross
that
sort of
exists.
when Iron Horse says he only believes in this, he's not putting his own beliefs in that requirement. That's what you've got to understand.
You know, look, if I understand what a gluon is and all that sort of stuff, and I was trained down that particular path, if that was my field of education, or as I call it, indoctrination, then that's what I'd believe in, and therefore it does exist in my mind. But can you show me a gluon?
It's too small for you to see.
So you have to believe in it. So it exists in the mind.
No, you don't have to just believe in an atom because you can't see it. You can.
Well, you do.
No, you can test if it's there or not just not involving your sight. There are other means of empirically verifying things other than sight.
No, there's not. No, there's not.
Iron Horse, you can't see a single skin cell. So do you have skin?
I believe so.
So
Why?
So there's something that exists, but you can't see it.
See skin. What are you talking about?
Can't see the
Well,
individual
do you believe
cells?
you have skin cells? Do you believe you have skin cells?
Yes, yes.
Do you believe you have
Why?
a brain?
Why?
Have you ever seen your
Well-
brain?
No, that's an
I
example
have.
I used before.
So then why do you believe that you have a brain if you've never experienced that you have a brain or you've never seen it?
I have the idea that I probably have a brain because of experience of other people have cut open cadavers and found a brain inside of it. But I don't think that that's my mind. I think that my mind is beyond my physical brain.
But you don't have evidence for that, or you think you do?
No, I just feel it.
But
So-
you already
so then-
said that all your experiences are going to be fundamentally shaped by your own beliefs. So again, it's circular here. You're using your experiences to justify your beliefs, and you're saying that your beliefs fundamentally shape your experiences. It's circular.
Well,
Sure
that's
it is.
basically exactly right. You know, all we've got is our five senses. You know, the feel, the sight, the smell, the taste, and the sound. But above that, we have the knowledge, the intuitive side, and that's not something that can be either felt or touched or it's beyond the senses. And if you don't have that, then you lack consciousness. You know, consciousness is the thing that can feel those things, those sensations, but those are illusionary things that come and go.
Okay, so we don't just have our senses. We have each other, and we have measuring devices. So we can intersubjectively create experiments and measurement devices that multiple people can repeat and attest to the results that can deduce things beyond our normal senses.
Well, but the device is interpreting it for our senses, is it not?
Yeah, at some point you have to see it like, it has to become interpretable to a human or a computer.
Exactly. So there's still something you visually see.
At the end, but not at the measure, like at the display end, but not at the actual measurement site. Like, just because a measurement device is a bridge between our senses and things that we can't sense doesn't mean that it's not probing things that we can't sense.
Okay, but so if you've already pre-presumed, or whatever the correct term for that is, the result. Say, for example, let's go back to Eratosthenes, for example, and say let's assume that he wanted to prove that the Earth was flat and the sun was local. And so if he went out and said, rightio, well, I know that this place over in Alexandria has no shadow on this particular time of day on the summer solstice. It's directly down, no shadow there. And I'm 500 miles away over in Syene, and I've got an obelisk standing there, and I can measure the height of the obelisk, and I know the distance, and I measure the angle of shadow, then I can conclusively prove that the Earth is flat with a nearby local sun, because that's the result I was looking for. But if he's doing the opposite and saying, well, I want to presume the size and shape of the Earth, and I presume it's a sphere, then I can also use that same deduction to back what I've already pre-presumed to be correct. So it's just
the problem with
bias.
that is it only works for a local local small sun. If you do 2 points of measurement, if you do any more than 2, then it falls apart. That it's a local flat Earth doesn't work.
Well, again, Mark, this is the thing you were having a go at me before, because I said that each and every one of us has our own individual perception of the sun. And so that is exactly why it falls apart, because you've then presumed, because each individual has its own version of the sun, that by putting it 93 million miles away, that takes care of all that. It's just such an unfathomable distance away from us that it then matches the preconceived expectations that you were looking for in the first place.
So you're actually
Wait, what
positing
about other
that
light sources? Are the other light sources also unique to each individual?
Absolutely, yeah, because to me, the firmament is only about 60 to 70 miles above the Earth, which on the scale of things is like microscopically close to us. And that's what we're seeing all these lights through. So if they're existing thousands of miles high above it, we're only seeing them here, and a person down here is looking up through their version up here, but they're still looking at something way, way, way up high.
So then your hypothesis could be tested with a flashlight or two?
Or a balloon and an altimeter.
Let's say if you put a massive sheet, big, huge, semi-transparent sheet across a huge field, and you put flew a helicopter up above it, then everybody, if the helicopter's not shining a specific spotlight down onto the sheet, everybody's going to be seeing their version of that helicopter through a different part of the sheet. And for all intents and purposes, then where they're seeing it in the sheet is their specific location. That's the sort of example I'm trying to use. But we're talking on a massive scale. We're talking 70 miles high. Nothing can get 70 miles high. Planes fly 5 or 6 miles high. The atmosphere reaches 12 to 14 miles high.
We've definitely gotten that distance.
Huh?
We've definitely got that distance right before.
We haven't, though. That's the whole thing. We might think we have, but the pressure of air itself gives us a false reading because all we're using is barometric pressure to measure it. It's not like with water, where water is a constant density, so we can measure it and we can actually drop a weight on a rope.
What about
measure the number of meters, how deep it went? When it comes to the air, we can't do anything more than 2 kilometers high with a wire.
So what
If
about
only someone in this call had experience working with satellites.
I don't know who you're referring to, but I was going to bring up satellites as saying that they do not measure their altitude by measuring any kind of air pressure. They're using lasers, bouncing it off of the Earth's surface to precisely calculate the distance there.
Yep. Well, satellites, I think, are totally a myth. Absolutely a myth. We've got helium balloons.
So what was I calibrating the so how does satellite in like remote Australia work? How does that work?
There's helium balloons up there with technology attached to them. And because of that same density gradient of the atmosphere itself, it can even give a false reading to a laser light because it's assuming it's working in the density of the medium of air down here at sea level or nearabouts. Once it gets into lighter and lighter air, it's just going to give the same reading as radio waves, as light waves, as barometric pressure, all of that. They're all going to be incorrect by X amount. The further and further you go, the more incorrect it's going to be.
So you think that things like GPS satellites are just a series of helium balloons?
No. GPS is all ground-based towers. It's just radio signal.
But GPS works in the middle of nowhere.
That's right, because the radio signals work in the middle of nowhere too.
It also works in valleys.
Yeah. Why is it then that if radio signals just work anywhere, regardless of distance and how remote you are, then why is it that we have lots of areas on Earth that don't have Wi-Fi? You can't get internet. You can't get cell phone service.
Correct.
It's on a different frequency. The mobile phone signal has to be much closer to work, and that's what the internet and stuff works off.
Why?
I don't know. I'm not a technical engineer on this stuff. All I know is
you said that GPS runs off of these radio signals. So
GPS does.
I should be able to get GPS like anywhere on Earth. I should be able to get GPS without, just with using.
You pretty much can, but the thing is, what the phone or your GPS device is hooking into, it has to have that map already pre-programmed into it through experience of other people. So if you're out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the ocean, there's nobody that's actually pinpointed that location through that whole triangulation of radio signals to say that's exactly where you are. You'll get a pretty broad estimate of where you might be. But the GPS depends on the pre-programmed maps, which have to have been done by Google with their Google vehicles or their Google drones and so forth. And that's how we get the accurate GPS today, because it's a combination of fairly ancient radio signal combined with modern computation and being able to put it all together.
Yeah, that's absolute nonsense. Like
It's
I've
not.
worked on,
It's absolutely
I've worked.
not,
No. I've worked for the two biggest internet companies in Australia, and I can tell you right now there are line of sight problems for mobile towers. It doesn't matter that you have, like, you're surrounded by mountains. You can still get a GPS signal where that
Exactly.
ought to be blocked. Or to be blocked by
but the
ground
point
signals.
is, but
there
your
also is
mobile
no,
phone
like, hang on,
signal
and I have worked with
I'm just addressing that
calibrating
point, Mark.
and sending the
Just addressing
calibrations to the technicians for these dishes that are always pointed up, by the way, and it is not balloon coordinates, it is satellite coordinates, and I personally have worked with that. So I don't know how you can tell me that for some reason they're using balloons. It's
as well as
I'm not saying that the balloons are the reason for it. I'm saying it's the towers. And once you've lost that line of sight to the tower, you've lost your mobile device. But the GPS can still work because it's already had the map basically downloaded into its memory.
No,
and it's picking up on the radio signals, triangulating for things, and it can still give you accurate GPS, but you're still not going to get internet. You're not going to get your phone. But you've got GPS still on the same device. Okay. It's a very clever little computer these days.
But here's where you keep coming into it. You could also claim that in the middle of the ocean, we couldn't use GPSs. I'm ex-military. I used to serve in the Navy. We use things like glide bombs as well as guided missiles. Most of them have a GPS system within them, and they get very, very accurate when we're using them for target practice. If we don't get GPS in the middle of the ocean, then they wouldn't work. So explain that.
Well, that's exactly what I just did. I said GPS does work in the middle of the ocean, but it won't. Your mobile phone won't work where you haven't got line of sight
Iron
to
Horse.
a tower.
Iron Horse. You should just get 1 month subscription to whatever Elon Musk's his internet service is. It works anywhere. You can go to the remote areas of Australia.
Skylink, I think it is.
Starlink,
yeah, you're right.
Just get 1 month subscription of Starlink. Go to all the most remote places that you can think of, and you will get all your mobile services and internet connection. And I guarantee you that a Google vehicle has not been to all the places that you'll go.
Yeah,
Hashtag not sponsored.
I am dubious about that. When I was, where I live now, I've got direct line of sight to a tower, and I've got proper internet linked up. But where I was further down the road, it was only about 10 k's or so.
So I just got back from a trip to the Grand Canyon, and I went at a very remote camping site in the Grand Canyon, not accessible by a car. And there was somebody else there who had internet connection. I didn't have any.
That's what I'm trying to say. Is I was able to buy a dongle, which is able to connect to
it doesn't.
Satellite.
Get out of here. A dongle is using like Wi-Fi, or mobile signal. Come on.
Yeah.
Iron Horse, what are you talking about?
I had Wi-Fi signal out there, but my dongle was what I used to get internet.
Yes, it's mobile. It's 3G or 4G or 5G service.
And where other people had
this is the problem.
Mark, hang on a sec.
Yeah.
Just let me finish this, because where I had no signal or very low signal on my phone, I could use this dongle then to basically connect to the internet and even live stream. I did debates on Modern Day Debate via that signal. And when we had the floods and everybody else lost their connection, because I still had this dongle going, I'm still getting connection where they weren't. So you can't sort of tell me that Wi-Fi is somehow, what was I connected to a satellite that everybody else didn't have or something?
It was a Telstra. It was a Telstra dongle, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the others were probably on Optus.
Oh, probably.
And if you knew,
so you had no idea
if you knew anything about mobile coverage, you would know that Telstra has like a way greater mobile coverage than Optus does.
I know that. I experience that all the time, because most of the times when I'm working, we go out of service altogether. But the people with Telstra, like myself, will always get the service more so than the others, because most of the towers around us are Telstra towers.
that explains why you could get a service and other people couldn't. It's not
But they
what you're
were with
saying it
Telstra.
is.
They were with Telstra. It's just that my dongle was obviously onto a different part of the Telstra system. I can't explain exactly why.
They may
But
have
all I'm saying is,
prioritized internet. Hang on, they
but
may have prioritized internet service over mobile reception for some weird reason, or it may have been something else happening. Like you
possibly,
don't know.
But all I'm saying though is that the GPS is completely separate again from that, so that you can, like, I have literally sat and watched. This guy was an idiot. I used to buy pot off him years ago, and he was a crazy sort of fella. And but he had connections, and so he was able to get this radio that you're not allowed to have in Australia. That's why I can't mention his name, but it has what he called crystals. They're restricted ones, police ones, emergency ones, all these things that they're completely illegal to have in Australia. But his radio had them, and all he had was a 3-meter antenna in his backyard, in this place just not that far from Newcastle, Australia. And we were able to talk live to Hawaii during a rescue mission. These helicopter pilots were trying to do some rescue thing, and this guy was being an idiot because I'd had radio training in my surf life-saving stuff. And he's just been an idiot saying, breaker, this is kangaroo country, trying to talk to you in Hawaii. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing, man? You can't interfere on an emergency channel. Don't do that.
I don't get what this has got to do with anything,
but
quite frankly.
We had live radio connection from Australia to Hawaii, is all I'm saying. Live, instant, barely a half a second interference channel. That's how fast radio works, and GPS is working off that frequency of signal into a device that also does other stuff like the internet and mobile,
I don't believe
separate.
any of that. I don't believe that story.
So once you've downloaded
really
the
don't.
app and you've got your GPS, your Google Maps, the signal can still work where you've got no other phone signal whatsoever. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, so I don't believe that in the slightest. I do not believe your sort of big fish story. Well, because you've got you're not describing which radio signal it used. You're not even describing how it was used. You're basically, well, yeah, that's my point. You have
I'm
no
barely
idea.
20 years old. I know we've got channels 1 to 40, then we've got 40 to 80 on other radios.
Okay.
And he was using a frequency, it was like 442 or something. I don't
frequency.
know.
Yeah, Ross, I'm talking about frequency. I'm not talking about channels. Like,
that's what the frequency is. How do you dial into a channel unless you dial into that frequency? That's the airwave you are dialed into, that frequency, that specific one.
Channels are specific frequencies in, like, you're not even telling us what type of radios, like what type of signal it was. Like
CB
whether it was
radio.
UHF or
CB radio, UHF. Yeah.
You've got a CB radio. Yeah, I don't believe that in the slightest.
So I'm sorry if I may.
I saw it.
Mind if we start to bring this to a close?
Yeah, I think I'm done.
It's getting kind of late.
No, it's not.
Sorry, I got work in the morning.
3:22 p.m.
Yeah,
no, that's cool.
No worries. Well, thanks for having us on. Really appreciate it. Yeah, it was a interesting debate, a pretty weird one, weird after show as well. So yeah, but thanks for having us on, Grayson. I really and sorry, Doc Dino, really appreciate it.
No problem.
I think you should
say it's not his channel.
It is now. I've taken it over.
No.
Yeah. So yeah, Grayson, I think you should debate on stuff, man. You'd be really good, and it'd be really a lot of fun to see. So I heartily recommend.
I sort of feel like I might embarrass him a little bit. That's the trouble. He doesn't know.
Yeah, but you always say that.
But none of you know a thing about flat Earth, and you're trying to debate against something you don't even understand the basics of.
Ross, you showed your penis on live stream. I wouldn't worry about getting embarrassing stuff happening. Seriously,
I'm not embarrassed about my penis, Mark. I don't know what's that got to do with anything. Why did you bring that up? Are you obsessed with my penis?
Well, it's kind of
that's
embarrassing,
weird.
really.
That's weird.
Well,
like, especially when you're touching your head and rubbing it. It's like, are you some sort of dickhead or something?
So there's a real quick question, actually, I would like to ask. How do tectonic plates work on the flat Earth?
They don't.
The same way they would on a globe, only they're floating in the water, assuming we even have them. But yeah, you can have massive land masses floating in water.
Yeah, I'm out. I will catch you later. Ross is just being weird again. So see you guys. Take it easy.
What? How do they work on a spinning space ball? That's what I'd like to know.
They were
gravity.
pretty dang well.
Everything's
so
gravity.
Grayson, you wanted to do a stream with me tomorrow, right? When do you want to do that?
Yeah, so I have not made the tier list yet. So I don't know if I'm exactly organized enough to be able to do that tomorrow. And I know that you're getting really busy coming up. So we'll have to talk about it in emails because for the people that don't know, we're trying to organize another Paleo Creatures tier list.
Yeah, should be fun. Well,
it's a lot of creatures.
I can send you my work schedule if you want, or do you know how to use When to Meet?
No.
I can walk you through it. It's like a website that helps you set up meeting times.
Oh, cool. Is it something that you can send me the link to?
Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. I am ready for sleep.
Yep, sounds
That's
good.
Thank you for joining, everyone.
Thanks, Doc Dano. It's was interesting. And cheers, guys. Good talking with you.
Yep, I look forward to being embarrassed publicly on
Yeah, no, I look forward to doing it. It should be fun.
Oh, dear.
No, I love
have
Flat
a good
Earth.
night,
I
everyone.
know it all inside and out. So yeah, it'll be fun to have a debate. Hopefully Ryan can organise something. Catch you later, guys.
Offline.